I was born at the peak, among the 4 bloodlines that could influence the world. I alone possessed 2 of them. And it was my parents who gave me this talent. They were each the most powerful beings within their respective bloodlines. But due to their excessive low profile, they gave birth to me without knowing each other's true identities. Because of this, I was also the world's first dual bloodline holder. Today was my 20th birthday. After 10 p.m., I would undergo my second awakening as an immortal. During the day while shopping with my father, he told me many precautions for the awakening. I committed every word to memory, but even with full preparation, when night fell, I still couldn't endure this agony. This feeling of thousands of sharp blades cutting across my body, I had experienced it 2 years ago as well. I vaguely remembered it was when I first awakened as a transformer, although my body underwent tremendous changes after awakening. During the awakening process, all my body hair kept falling out. Blood gushed from my mouth like it was free, and my muscles felt completely torn. So much so that when my mother came to check on me, I asked her if this kind of awakening would happen again. Only after she confirmed it wouldn't did I breathe a sigh of relief, because I really didn't want to experience this pain again. But things didn't go as I wished. This agony replayed itself on my body today. I could only grit my teeth and endure. The scene shifted to the next day. I had completed my awakening. Looking at myself in the mirror, I felt the changes. First, my appearance hadn't changed at all. The pain hadn't decreased in the slightest either. But my auditory system became extremely sharp. The slightest sound could be amplified countless times. I skillfully used telekinesis to slowly control my body. After all, I had practiced many times when becoming a transformer. As the sounds in my ears gradually disappeared, I realized that I should now be considered a true immortal. But could I hide this secret? Just as I stared at the mirror and thought, my mom's voice calling me for breakfast came through. I responded and walked out of my room, looking at the table full of abundant, delicious food before me. Could you believe this was just our breakfast? With my mother's appetite of being able to eat half a rice cooker's worth of rice in one sitting, my father had never suspected she possessed the transformer bloodline. During the meal, my father suddenly mentioned wanting me to take the civil service exam because most immortals worked for the authorities. Before I could speak, my mother refused my father's suggestion on the grounds that I still needed to attend university because she hoped I could enter a transformer enterprise after graduating from college to receive professional training from the clan. So for my future development, the 2 of them, unaware of each other's true identities, disagreed for the first time. I couldn't imagine what scenario would unfold if these 2 supreme beings clashed, so I quickly stated that I wanted to become a Marine. As soon as I finished speaking, my mother smiled and reminded me that this wasn't a well-thought-out statement. Sensing the killing intent she was releasing at me intentionally or unintentionally, I was so frightened I became incoherent. Fortunately, my father helped me out at this moment. He said being a soldier was pretty good, and even suggested I attend military school before enlisting. This way, it would satisfy Mom's wish for me to attend school, and attending military school would also help with future military service. Finally, he told me to take the civil service exam before attending military school, and after passing the exam, he could help me defer my appointment so I could attend military school. Plus, passing the civil service exam in advance had bonus point policies for military school entrance exams. Hearing my father arrange things this way, I had to give him massive credit. This 3 birds, 1 stone method left Mom speechless. However, my father said the civil service exam wasn't that easy. He had a friend in Huacheng who ran a cram school and told me to go study there on weekends. I readily accepted my father's arrangement. After sitting on the bus for 6 hours, I finally arrived at the cram location my father mentioned and met the teacher responsible for tutoring me. When this teacher saw me, he asked with a puzzled face why I, an immortal, was covered in bulging muscles. I told him it was due to being mixed blood. He told me with a serious face that it was impossible. The immortal bloodline was very pure. Not to mention your father isn't an ordinary person. How could human blood mix with immortal blood? Of course, I couldn't tell him my mother's bloodline was very pure. Then this teacher led me up the mountain. After arriving at the training grounds, I suddenly felt this didn't look like a cram school at all. At this point, the teacher asked me if I'd tried my immortal abilities. I told him I'd cut my arm with a knife, but the wound healed quickly. He took a small stick and randomly scribbled on the ground, then asked me what the principle of wound healing was. I said I didn't know. He told me he didn't know either, but he told me to remember that immortals could improve their healing ability by training physical strength and perception. Then he had me begin training. I told him I understood all this, but what puzzled me was what did this immortal knowledge and running on daggers stuck in the ground have to do with me? Didn't I come for intensive tutoring to pass the civil service exam? Why weren't you teaching me exam content? After hearing my words, this teacher was also confused. He said, weren't you signing up for the Immortal Special Forces exam? This is the exam content. If you want to learn, learn. If not, you can leave immediately. I instantly realized I'd probably been tricked by my own father, but only by passing this exam could I do what I wanted. I could only bite the bullet and continue studying. To prevent me from ruining my clothes, the teacher specially brought me a pair of flowered shorts. Looking at these daggers stuck in the ground, I tried hard to console myself that I had to take the exam anyway. It's just that the written test had been replaced with a practical project. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, then charged toward the dagger array, with the squelching sound of blades entering flesh and waves of screams. By the time I reached the end, both my feet were a bloody mess. I collapsed powerlessly on the ground and shouted loudly that I couldn't go on. Just give me a quick end. At this point, the teacher walked up to me and said, "Stop pretending. You deliberately avoided several of the blades in the middle, didn't you? Pretty good motor nerves." Then he looked at my legs that had almost healed. "Your healing ability is quite impressive too. Kid, next time you can't dodge anymore. You need to step on them more times to make the wounds bigger. Ideally, break your legs." Listening to what he said, I lamented that this man was truly a lunatic. Under his constant urging, I ran across the blade array again and again. As I was in excruciating pain, he gradually noticed something wrong. Blade array training was supposed to make immortals pass out through pain, thereby increasing their pain threshold. With this intensity of training, I should have been lying down long ago. He then stopped my dance on the blade tips, asking me if I couldn't feel pain, and why hadn't I passed out from pain yet. How could it not hurt? Couldn't he see I was crying out for my mother? But I couldn't explain to him that I also possessed Transformer bloodline, and the physically robust Transformers would never pass out from such minor injuries. So I asked him if there was another way to pass this test besides passing out. He thought for a moment and asked me how many seconds I needed to run 50 meters. I told him 6 seconds. This blade array was 50 meters long. He said as long as I could finish running it within 6 seconds, I'd pass this training. Hearing this, I smiled. The 6 seconds I mentioned for 50 meters was in my normal state, although running on blade tips hurt. If I blocked out my perception and fully unleashed the Transformer's physical strength, I would definitely finish within 6 seconds. I took a quick step and ran out, then sprinted all the way to quickly finish those 50 meters. But when I asked the teacher if I exceeded 6 seconds, he told me to do it again because he forgot to time it. I couldn't help letting out a curse. In the blink of an eye, it was afternoon. At this time, the teacher had me start the second training breath holding practice. He had me hang a metal chain around my neck, and after pressing the button, the chain would strangle my neck. I said if I wanted to practice holding my breath, I could go diving, but he told me that wouldn't achieve any training effect at all. This chain could train my ability to resist oppression and avoid passing out in combat. Having learned from the morning's experience, I asked him what the passing condition for this training was. He said just lasting 5 minutes would be fine. With a clear goal, I felt more confident. Then he pressed the switch, and the inhumane breath-holding practice officially began. Time passed second by second. The burning sensation of oxygen deprivation in my lungs made my fingers dig deep into the ground. The constantly tightening pressure of the chain made my neck extremely uncomfortable. I couldn't help wanting to pry it off with my hands. At this moment, the teacher struck my hand with his stick, shouting loudly, "Kid, you can still hold on. Don't play weak. If you really can't bear it, then just pass out." Damn it, wasn't this typical verbal provocation? Didn't he say only 5 minutes? He hasn't called it off yet. Could the time not be up? I couldn't let him look down on me. After all, I had this dual bloodline. I don't know how much more time passed, but I felt I'd reached my limit and was about to fall face first to the ground. But at this moment, a mysterious force surged from within my body and impacted the chain around my neck. Then the remote control in the teacher's hand emitted electrical sounds before dying, and at this moment, my eyes were emitting a faint blue glow. What was going on? The chain dropped to the ground with a clatter. I gasped heavily for breath, lamenting I'd almost lost my life. Since I didn't pass out, the teacher wouldn't make me do it again, would he? But this clearly exceeded the 5-minute requirement. Don't worry, I didn't forget to time it this round. You kid actually held your breath for 12 minutes and 47 seconds, easily breaking the predecessor's 8-minute record. Interesting. He looked at me with a meaningful smile, then announced today's training was over and it was time to prepare dinner. When a wave of colorful sticky mixture was served on the dining table, I was instantly stunned, unable to help asking what this was made of. "Are you sure you want to know?" he said to me in an unusual voice. Then never mind. After dinner, I washed up by the stream. Having just vomited 18 times, I wanted nothing more than to scrub myself 18 times over. Looks like I'd have to cook my own meals. When it was time to sleep at night, I looked at the room full of mosquitoes and asked the teacher why he didn't light mosquito incense. The teacher told me this was called tactile blocking training, because immortals possessed keen touch and felt discomfort several times worse than ordinary people, so the body needed to rapidly adapt under these conditions. Just as I was about to ask if there were any corresponding techniques, thunder-like snoring came from beside my ear. I had to admire that the teacher was indeed a master. The next morning, as soon as I woke up, the teacher served hot breakfast. I looked at the charred blocky objects on the plate, not knowing how to proceed. The teacher was also very considerate, telling me that newly awakened immortals consumed a lot of energy, so I should eat more. During the meal, I asked the teacher if the key point for immortals in combat should be not passing out or fainting from intense impact and oppression. The teacher praised me for being so smart, then told me there was one more point: you must protect your legs, and your arms are your shield. When opponents attack your head or legs, just extend your arms and let them chop. After breakfast, I began the inhumane high-altitude drop training again. After being kicked off the cliff 99th times in a row, the terrifying weekend tutoring finally ended, and I boarded the bus home. On the bus, I called my father and asked him if I'd come to the wrong place, because the teacher had me jump down from the mountain 99 times. My father told me it didn't matter if immortals got hurt a bit, only that way could I know my body's limits. At this moment, I really doubted whether I was his biological son. Back home, I ate delicious food, stayed in a room without mosquitoes, and played fun video games. Just as I was sighing about how beautiful life was, my mother told me she had also arranged a cram school for me, and I just needed to eat and stay there for 2 days each time. I immediately had a bad premonition. After dropping me off at the tutoring location, my mother left directly without even meeting the teacher. Before leaving, she told me that being smart alone was useless, having a sturdy body was most important. At this moment, I was certain that what was coming definitely wasn't any proper exam review. Sure enough, when I took the elevator down to the 18th basement level, what appeared before my eyes was a huge gym. At this time, a burly beauty asked me if I was Sioi's son. I nodded at her, while telling her I didn't know why my mom wanted me to come here. She said my mom felt my 2 days of studying were too relaxed, and with such a strong body, if I only moved my brain, it would be too wasteful. Were those 2 days relaxing? I recalled my experiences and couldn't help shuddering. The female teacher threw me a metal ring, telling me to wear it on my wrists and ankles. It could monitor my physical condition at all times. I asked her if I needed to receive training. She told me I wasn't qualified yet. First came testing. Then she pointed at the treadmill and told me to run for a while. Just like that, while she monitored my physical condition, she complained that my power output was far too low. What a waste of this robust physique. I asked her how long I needed to run. She told me 3 words: keep running. Just like that, I ran from sunset to sunrise, running continuously for 14 hours. Not only without a drop of water, but also having to constantly report my cumulative running time to her. At this time, she walked toward me with a remote control, telling me that combat couldn't rely solely on natural physical qualities. It also required professional training. Just when I thought I'd stop and do other exercises, she instead turned on the player in front of the treadmill, requiring me to run while memorizing the movements shown in the video. What the hell kind of training was this? Counting time on one hand, while also having to remember the movements in the video, listening to her talk in between, and constantly running. If I hadn't activated the Immortal's perception separation ability, I would have broken down long ago. Did other Transformers also train like this? After continuing for 24 hours, this inhumane aerobic exercise finally ended. At this time, the female teacher looked at me collapsed on the treadmill and revealed a mysterious smile, then began doing stretching exercises. Watching the movements she demonstrated for me, I marveled that the human body could be flexible to this degree, yet when I tried to do them, I was unbearably stiff. Then the teacher told me that flexibility training was slow because it required waiting for torn muscles to heal bit by bit. Hearing this, a light flashed in my mind. I was an immortal. I didn't need to take it slow at all, as long as I could endure momentary pain. Going all the way down in one stretch wasn't a problem. I forcibly tore all my ligaments and completed the movement the teacher had demonstrated in one go. Then, under the Immortal Constitution's rapid healing, my ligaments regrew and recovered. What took others a long time to train in flexibility, I achieved in less than a minute. The teacher exclaimed I was truly a miraculous guy, then announced today's physical training was over. Looking at the sizzling roast pig before me, I couldn't help swallowing and asking the teacher if this was our dinner. She told me this was hers, and mine was another even larger one. Then we both launched an attack on these fragrant roast pigs in the following practice sessions. One mock teacher continuously tested my various indicators through different gym equipment. Looking at the feedback data, she lamented that my motor nerves were far too slow, so she required me to hold a barbell while running on wooden boards. She then told me that although it was only 3 meters high, I must deliberately avoid getting injured because a healthy body was the core of the Transformer clan. I looked at the wooden board that was only 4 centimeters wide and hesitated for a moment, then accelerated and rushed over, because this height with my immortal constitution, even if I fell and broke bones they would heal, so I wasn't afraid of falling at all. And during this process, I used keen tactile sense to feel the pressure the sneakers were bearing, thereby maintaining balance. So this kind of training was child's play for me. My series of operations stunned one mock teacher. She couldn't believe that I, a beginner transformer, running on this 4 centimeter wide, 50 meter long board, hadn't wobbled even once. So she didn't hesitate to replace the board with a steel wire, then told me that the wooden board I just trained on was only beginner level. Seeing me train just now, she thought I was very weak, but didn't expect my sense of balance to be this excellent. After switching to the steel wire, the teacher also put soft mats below and didn't make me hold the barbell anymore. Seeing this, I thought it would be even easier, so I gathered my strength and charged right up. Then after just 2 steps nearly fell down. It seemed that the Transformer clan's formal training program still didn't allow shortcuts. In the following time, one mock teacher kept smiling while watching me, then had me walk on the steel wire holding an 80-pound barbell for an entire day. On the way home, my mother told me the reason she had me do this training was that I was too weak, and she didn't want me to be bullied in the future. I told her I was the school's one-punch Superman. If my classmates heard this, they'd all be shocked. My mother didn't say anything more, but her face still showed deep concern. In this situation, I didn't dare ask more questions, only pondered who exactly would bully me. After getting home, I begged my mother to teach me how to cook. She readily agreed. I immediately fantasized that if I could learn to cook delicious food, I wouldn't suffer so much when training with stick teacher. And I was even looking forward to what next week's training program would be. At this moment, I didn't notice that my mother was also watching me, slightly muttering that maybe being bullied would be lighter if I could cook well. My teacher actually shot at me from behind. I don't know if her marksmanship was too poor, or if I dodged fast enough. But after 3,000 bullets were fired, I was completely unharmed. At this time, one mock teacher walked toward me holding a specially made training pistol, telling me today's reaction training was over. Now continue with steel wire running practice. Just as I was showing off my skills on the steel wire holding a 120-pound barbell, intense killing intent came from behind. I immediately panicked and fell straight down from the air. I quickly got up to check, but everything in front of me was normal. One mock teacher was concentrating on the tablet computer in her hands. Sensing my gaze, she suddenly looked up and asked me what I felt. I told her I just detected intense killing intent pervading the surroundings, and my heart was stimulated to the point of nearly exploding. One mock teacher told me this was a kind of wild killing aura from powerful transformers, but what was curious was that I, a beginner transformer, could actually sense it. However, since I could sense it now, I should continue training under the shroud of this killing aura. Then I entered the hellish stage of transformer training. Under the influence of the killing aura, I completely couldn't control my body. After falling down again and again, I gradually learned to use the immortal's perception to effectively determine where the killing aura invaded my body, thereby adjusting my power points. My rocket-like progress speed made one mock teacher, who was observing me, unable to help shouting genius. As my transformer abilities continuously strengthened, my immortal constitution didn't fall behind at all either. At this moment, I had just fallen from high altitude, completing the final training. Stick teacher standing on the mountaintop told me to hurry up after jumping, then told me that actually running the blade array, being strangled by chains, free falling from heights and other training were basically unrelated to the exam I needed to take, because these projects were all the most basic exercises. Then he pulled out a 2-meter-long broadsword, telling me that as an immortal, I didn't fear bullets. When facing attacks with smaller attack surfaces, I could withstand them with my body, but if it was large weapon slashes, I must dodge. So what was starting now would be the immortal's formal curriculum training on how to take blade strikes. Immediately after, that 2-meter-long cleaver swung toward me. Using my good reflexes, I consecutively dodged several of Stick Teacher's attacks, who knew this operation of mine would instantly anger him. He shouted loudly, "This is training to let you dodge fatal injuries by choosing to take light injuries. What does it mean that you dodge them all? Are you showing off your skills to me? You kid, just wait." He suddenly increased his attack frequency. I couldn't dodge in time, and instantly wounds appeared all over my body. Under my powerful healing ability, the wounds that were just bleeding quickly healed. Stick Teacher exclaimed at my powerful recovery ability, then continued launching attacks at me. Finally, under his crazy slashing, I collapsed from excessive blood loss. At this time, the teacher told me again that anemia caused by excessive blood loss was also one of the immortal's weaknesses. Then he let me rest for a while before preparing to eat lunch. I volunteered to tell him I'd make lunch myself. Finally, under the hospitality of my Adrian brand meat sauce pasta, Stick Teacher showed a satisfied smile, while happily telling me he was adding a training item today. Just as I was still wondering what training it was, Stick Teacher suddenly stabbed me in the abdomen, then whispered in my ear that this was the new project, internal organ regeneration training. My most respected teacher actually stabbed me 23 times to my face, and just 5 minutes ago, he was happily eating the meat sauce pasta I'd specially made for him. I clutched my wound and asked him why. He told me that to pass the civil service exam, I still needed to constantly strengthen my regeneration ability, and internal organ regeneration training was an indispensable part. To smoothly pass the upcoming exam, I studied hard at the special courses my dad and mom arranged. The Immortal clan kept doing training like hellish torture, besides the basics of running barefoot on blade arrays, being strangled by chains around the neck, and high-altitude free-falling this triathlon. They also added flashy content like withstanding explosive arrow barrages and stepping on animal traps. The transformer training was also much the same as before. I needed to wear an 80-pound iron belt and vest while continuing to dodge gunfire, with wrists and ankles tied with 30-pound sandbags while continuing to walk the steel wire holding a barbell. Just like that, after 2 months passed, my body entered optimal condition under the crazy practice. During this period, my parents also secretly inquired about my training situation, because they knew that special races mixing with humans, although they could give birth to normal children, the bloodline talents themselves might disappear by half or even more, so they didn't hold much hope for my performance. But when the teachers told them I was a genius among geniuses, they both proudly praised their own strong genetic genes. Today finally came the civil service exam. Mom prepared a sumptuous breakfast for me and told me not to eat too much, lest I get drowsy while answering questions. At the same time, she worriedly told me that if I didn't pass, Dad would definitely be very disappointed. I could see that although Mom didn't want me to become a civil servant, she also didn't want me to fail. I then comforted her not to worry, I would definitely pass. Then I hummed a song and took the elevator downstairs. At the elevator entrance, I ran into Hyemin, the girl who lived on the same floor. She told me not to sing when proposing to her, because I was already handsome enough. She wouldn't also require that I sing well, although I really wanted to find a girlfriend. For a girl like Hyemin who could kick someone's balls to pieces when angry, I'd better keep my distance. I arrived at the exam location half an hour early. After passing through various verifications and checks, I finally arrived at the special recruitment exam venue. Facing this tightly closed door, I was a bit nervous, worried that as soon as I opened the door, a flying knife would come at me. Although I didn't know what the exam would test, I could be certain that waiting for me inside would definitely be scarier than Stick Teacher during tutoring. I suddenly pushed open the door, but inside it was completely empty. A bald uncle checked my information form, then arranged a front row center seat for me. I looked around, feeling this was completely different from what I imagined. During tutoring, I hadn't seen so many desks and chairs. I consoled myself that maybe it was because exam time hadn't arrived yet. Perhaps later that bald uncle would come running with a broadsword. So right now I should stay on edge, ready at any moment. Half an hour later, looking at the exam candidates of all types around me, I felt I'd arrived at the most panicked moment of my life. Wasn't I taking the Immortal Special Forces exam? What was this situation? At this time, the bald uncle suddenly stood up holding a pen and said, "Just in case, I still need to ask, does anyone not have a pen?" In the complete silence, I slowly raised my hand. I received the pen the bald uncle handed over with extreme embarrassment. Looking at the other candidates around me constantly reviewing their books, I couldn't help feeling bewildered. What were they studying? From my observations, everyone taking the exam looked refined and well-groomed, especially this guy who looked exactly like a male celebrity from the TV station next door. I now seriously suspected this Immortal Special Forces wasn't anything proper. Just at this time, the proctors around began moving screens, separating each candidate into individual rooms. Looking at the exam paper the teacher handed out, I felt my last shred of hope shattered. Just as I was preparing to turn in a blank paper, I suddenly discovered why the questions on this exam paper look so familiar. If there's a coin-sized penetrating wound on the leg, please select what should be done first. The correct answer should be to stop the bleeding first. Stick teacher had mentioned this knowledge, and I had deep experience with it from blade array running training. If you can't avoid the opponent's blade, what should you do? The correct answer is to block with your arm. After all, the importance of mobility. I'd heard it so much my ears were about to grow calluses. I suddenly discovered that the common sense I'd heard from stick teacher during training, and the knowledge I'd gained through painful experience, were all telling me the correct answers. Before I knew it, I'd reached the final question. List methods to kill immortals besides drowning and live burial. I exclaimed this climactic question was too simple, so I wrote the answer and turned in my exam paper early. When coming out, I ran into that red-haired young lady again. She asked me if I was mixed blood. I nodded, but didn't tell her I was a mix of immortal and transformer. Half a month later, I received exam results information sent by the relevant department. When I told Mom I was accepted with first place in the written test, Mom excitedly immediately picked up the phone to share the good news with Dad, while also saying she'd buy some premium beef to reward me. Eating delicious grilled meat, watching my parents immersed in joy, I couldn't help thinking of stick teacher who trained me. This person was truly extraordinary. During the meal, Mom asked me which department I'd be going to. Dad said it might be at a state-owned enterprise under the Ministry of Administrative Safety's jurisdiction. Although Dad fooled Mom with his normal expression, I could tell he was avoiding that question. So the place I'd ultimately really go to was definitely not simple. Why did the authorities select immortals? And what did immortal civil servants need to do? I had a pile of questions I wanted to ask my dad, who had worked for the authorities for many years, but he probably couldn't tell me, and all these secrets would need me to uncover myself. Mom suspected I was interested in men, only because I, who had no girlfriend, could actually effectively control the Transformers' instincts. I quickly said I solved the problem by watching videos, which finally reassured her and let me participate in the new employee training organized by the company. Not long ago, I received a text message to participate in the second round of interviews. The interview location was still on Riedo Island. As my dad, who had been deeply involved with the authorities for many years, he still didn't reveal half a bit of information about the interview and future employment, only telling me to answer questions seriously. When I arrived at the interview location, I saw other candidates seriously reviewing their interview materials, which instantly made me feel somewhat out of place. At that moment, I encountered that stunningly handsome young master who sat next to me during the written exam, and the instant our eyes met, a strange look was conveyed to me. What did he mean by that? It was the same last time in the exam room. I felt my rear end tightening up a bit, so I quickly changed seats to keep far away from him. During the interview, I discovered that one of the interviewers was actually the red-haired young lady I met after the last exam, but before I could get friendly with her, another interviewer who looked like a candle directly started asking, "Why don't you first tell us your reason for submitting your resume?" If I said my dad made me come, they would probably immediately tell me to go home and wait for notification. Therefore, I told them I wanted to challenge my limits through this difficult exam. At the same time, I was also willing to fight to protect this land and its people. The red-haired young lady then asked me, if my girlfriend and my mom both fell into the water, who would I save first? This question was quite interesting. I recalled the expression the young lady had when she looked at me that day. Could it be that she was interested in me? I told her I was very good at swimming and could save them both together. Right after that, the candle interviewer asked me what I would do if I only had one bullet but had two targets. Without even thinking, I said I'd shoot one with the gun and knock the other one out by hitting them with the gun directly. My answer directly broke through the young lady's composure, and she burst out laughing. The interview that had me extremely worried was passed just like that so easily. The red-haired young lady then handed me an employment contract and asked me to sign it. When I saw the benefits benefits listed on the contract, I immediately felt I would disappoint my mom's expectations. This annual salary of 65 million plus various dazzling benefits completely shook the firm determination of this 20-year-old man. At that moment, I really wanted to seriously tell her that I wanted to become a leader of a state-owned enterprise under the Administrative Security Department. After returning home, I told my mother I had passed the interview and would soon be attending the company's 5-week closed training for new employees. Mother repeatedly reminded me to be careful there, because as a shapeshifter, I possessed beastly instincts, and if I were dominated by instinct, violent incidents or violations of the opposite sex could occur. The story of the howling wolf under the moonlight happened because a shapeshifter failed to control their instinct. There were 2 methods to restrain instinct. One was self-discipline, so after my awakening, she often took me mountain climbing to train myself. The other method was release. This was also why Mom kept urging me to find a girlfriend. Seeing my dejected appearance, Mom loudly asked me if I was interested in men. I quickly interrupted Mom's nagging and indicated that I was completely normal. Although special race crimes had surged in recent years, I was a very successful mixed blood, and she should definitely feel reassured about her son. Actually, I really wanted to tell her that, as a dual-gifted possessor of both Immortal and Shapeshifter bloodlines, my instincts could be completely suppressed by watching videos. As for the Immortal's acute senses, I had already adapted to them when practicing with Teacher Stick. I could eat well and sleep well anywhere, so I was really looking forward to these 5 weeks of closed training. This morning, I took the company-arranged bus to attend the pre-job training. As soon as I got on the bus, I saw that young master who was as beautiful as a flower. This time, he was actually sitting next to me again. Could it really be that heaven had destined something to happen? I recalled Dad's reminder before I left that as a special race member, making more friends was a good thing. So I proactively greeted this young master. He looked at me with a completely blank expression. I hastily told him loudly that we had already made eye contact twice, and you had even smacked your lips twice. This was our 3rd meeting. He calmly told me this was the first time we met, then directly turned his head and ignored me. I was so angry my hands were trembling. This was way too insulting. My angry expression was caught by the young lady in the back seat. She asked me if I was a mixed blood immortal. I turned around and answered yes. She immediately mocked me for having no observational skills at all. After awakening, immortals were all very sensitive, and pure blood immortals were 10 times more sensitive than ordinary people. That's why everyone avoided sitting by the windows. The sunlight through the curtains was too glaring, and on such a densely packed bus, you actually talked loudly to others. Didn't you know your loud voice would cause others immense pain? Just shut up, you idiot. Being suddenly scolded like this in public by a girl, I was so angry I really wanted to give her an electric blast. When I calmed down, I realized she wasn't actually wrong. I remember Dad telling me that when he first awakened, he couldn't sleep well because as a pure blood, his 5 senses were too acute, and he could always hear wonderful sounds coming from the neighbors next door. He had to wear earplugs and an eye mask to sleep, and later he really couldn't stand it anymore. So he bought a 4-story building and set up a room filled with soundproof walls in the very center. Finally, after several years of painful torment, he learned the method of adjusting perception and gradually began to adapt to society. From the young lady's reaction just now, freely adjusting perception was probably very difficult for them to master. But for me, with Shapeshifter Bloodline, it was very simple because I could reduce my sensitivity through subtle muscle control. Suddenly, I felt a strange sensation in my stomach. A natural gas gradually gathered into a mass in my rectum. I felt like a yellow little spirit was calling out to me. Guangyi, Guangyi, can I go see the outside world? How could kind-hearted me refuse such a sincere request? So I completely relaxed my body, and then a faintly yellow gas quietly emerged. Immediately after, with the immortal's multiplied sense of smell, a poisoning incident occurred. After the bus arrived at the destination, 2 colleagues came over supporting each other and greeted me. Strong brother, your gas bomb was way too intense. If we weren't both mixed bloods, we'd probably need emergency care right now. I told them this was just a normal physiological phenomenon. After learning I was mixed blood, they both expressed wanting to be friends. The 3 of us then walked together toward the training base. At that moment, brown-haired Xiaofeng told me this place was, but before he could finish speaking, a loud roar came from ahead. Assemble at the main platform on the playground. Anyone who doesn't arrive within 1 minute can go home now. Everyone started running forward at crazy speed. After everyone arrived at the assembly point following the command, 3 familiar faces appeared before us. The bald uncle, the candle interviewer, and the red-haired young lady. At that moment, the uncle looked at everyone panting and expressed his deep disappointment in our weak bodies. Therefore, he demanded we do another speed run. He would reward the first 15 people to reach the 3 trees on the opposite side. Since Mom had repeatedly reminded me at home not to reveal my shapeshifter identity, because shapeshifters were considered extremely dangerous people in ordinary people's eyes. So, under my deliberate control and perfect acting, I ran exactly 14th place, Just when I had some expectations for the so-called reward, the bald instructor had everyone do 300 push-ups first as an appetizer. This high-intensity physical training immediately exposed the immortal's weak physique. One colleague couldn't help but complain, and was immediately punished with a bone fracture by the instructor. And during the punishment, he couldn't even cry out because the sound would be too loud and would cause pure-blood immortal's eardrums to rupture. This wave of iron-fisted tactics shocked everyone into submission. Then the three instructors each introduced their areas of responsibility and welcomed us to the terror training camp. After the entry physical training ended, everyone moved into the luxurious 10-person dormitory rooms, and I was actually assigned, together with the blonde young master and the blonde young lady, along with the two mixed bloods I just met. However, this one big room with mixed genders was indeed somewhat inconvenient. Just as my gaze focused on the changing area surrounded by those two pieces of cloth, the blonde young lady warned me not to peek. Was I that kind of sleazy person? Why was this girl always targeting me? At that moment, the blonde young master stated that from now on, all physiological phenomena must be dealt with outside. Whoever violated this rule, he would eliminate them. This clearly showed he held deep resentment toward my gas bomb on the bus. Everyone immediately expressed agreement. Even the mixed blood duo I just befriended was no exception. I lamented that our 2-hour friendship had apparently been eaten by dogs. During mealtime, the coach had each dormitory elect a group leader, although I actively tried to compete for it. Due to my outstanding performance on the bus, the leader position was secured by the young master. In the end, I was even mocked by the blonde young lady. How can mixed bloods be compared with pure bloods? I was so angry I really wanted to make her taste the power of my dual bloodlines. The coaches then organized a video conference for everyone. At the meeting, the candle coach told everyone this training was to select Hualin's official employees. If they didn't want to lose their lives after joining, they needed to study hard here. Judging from his words, the work after joining was definitely not simple 9 to 5. Moreover, this Hualin company received direct sponsorship and management from the authorities. Therefore, it was very likely to assist the authorities in handling some malicious incidents. At this point, the red-haired young lady said in the video that Hualin's purpose was very clear. They hoped everyone could correctly use the Immortal's power. Use the Immortal's power? It seemed my speculation was correct. Night quickly arrived. Just as I finished showering and wanted to have a good sleep, whispers came from the dormitory. You moved your finger, didn't you? Can you breathe more quietly? Can you stop moving your hair? I lamented about these damn sensitive ghosts. This kind of collective life was going to be torture. After all, according to Dad's meaning, it would take at least 3 years for immortals to overcome insomnia. And the oldest person here, Xiao Feng, was just 23 years old. It seemed most people were in the period of intense sensitivity. At that moment, Xiao Jin beside me asked, "Brother, can you not breathe? I can't sleep." At that moment, I truly understood what it meant that even breathing was wrong. I asked him what methods he usually used to deal with insomnia. He told me the effective trick was to knock himself out, because the immortal's physique wouldn't leave any after effects. But not everyone could achieve unconscious sleep. If you didn't control the force well, you might sleep for a very long time. Just as he finished speaking, my arm was already wrapped around his neck. I whispered to him, "Good night, dream of me." And as my arm suddenly tightened with just the right force, Xiao Jin immediately passed out from lack of oxygen. My operation stunned Xiao Feng in the next bed, who exclaimed if I was a human-shaped sleep machine. He immediately expressed that he also wanted to dream of me, and I happily fulfilled his request. Looking at everyone in the dormitory, I asked who else wanted to meet me in their dreams. With a swoosh, everyone except the blonde young master raised their hands. I then sent them into dreamland one by one. However, when facing the blonde young lady, her arrogant expression made me extremely angry. But as roommates, I couldn't not help, so I directly used a hand chop and let her experience what a physical lullaby was. When I raised my hand chop toward the blonde young master with an evil smile, he hesitated for a moment, then turned around and lay down. That night, everyone in Group 3 had a good sleep, except the leader, of course. Now I was suddenly looking forward to nightfall. On the morning of the second day of training, the bald uncle led us on a 10-kilometer run. Then the red-haired young lady gave practical explanations about Immortal's weaknesses. At that moment, some fool who thought he had learned wrestling for 2 days wanted to find some confidence with me. As a result, I knocked him down in 1 second. Under the red-haired young lady's puzzled gaze, I quickly exclaimed that I was just lucky. The next training was blade running led by the candle instructor. The 3-centimeter blades scared these novices speechless. But for me, this was just a foot massage. After all, when teacher Stick taught me, he used 15-centimeter blades. A week of training passed just like that. When I finished washing up and was about to return to the dormitory to rest, I found everyone sitting on their beds in a daze. It turned out that last night the blonde young master couldn't sleep, so he went out for a walk. As a result, he got into a conflict with people from another room. Today, several people were looking at Group 3 members with strange eyes. I didn't know if it was because of this incident. At that moment, dense footsteps came from outside the door. The blonde young master said with a dark face that he would bear the consequences of the trouble he caused. Immediately, with a bang, the door was suddenly pushed open. The tattooed man in the lead shouted, "Which one of you is Adrian Cross?" "I am. What do you want?" Although I didn't know why the blonde young master used my name when fighting, as a roommate, I definitely couldn't back down. The tattooed man suddenly said to me with a shy expression, "I also want to dream of you." Pfft. Xiaojin behind me burst out laughing. I hastily told the tattooed man that I liked girls, and he quickly explained that he wanted me to help him sleep. Looking at this group of people with huge dark circles under their eyes, I instantly understood what the problem was. I then asked him how he knew I had this skill. He told me that Xiaojin had been bragging outside about how marvelous my technique was. After hearing about it, he planned to bring his roommates to try it out, but didn't know if I was willing to help. I told him this was just a simple favor. That night, I used hand chops on the people from Group 1, and they slept well as they wished. The next morning, the tattooed man made a special trip to the cafeteria to thank me. He kept praising my superb technique and sighed that last night was the best sleep he'd had since his awakening. Just like that, I became completely popular. All the group leaders came to me, asking me to help solve their sleep problems. I looked at Xiaojin beside me, and 10,000 wild horses were galloping through my mind. How long would it take me to knock out over 100 people? As the workload kept increasing, I gradually mastered the essentials of the physical lullaby. So I had all those who needed sleep assistance gather at the indoor training ground, knocked them out one by one, and had their group mates drag them back to the dormitory. The instructor saw the situation but didn't stop it. Therefore, I became the most shining person in the training camp. They gave me an affectionate nickname, Chop Adrian. They even changed my surname. I wondered if Dad would punish me when he found out. In the blink of an eye, the new recruit training was almost over. What kind of work will be awaiting us? The ball teacher told us that in this world there were black holes connecting to other worlds, and invaders would come to our world through these black holes. Now everyone could learn here about their appearance and methods to deal with them. Among them was a monster called the Blue Knight. When the large black hole appeared, it alone defeated nearly 500 armed personnel. Therefore, if we ever encountered one, we should immediately flee. Through this period of training, I understood that Hualin Company was actually a special organization established by the authorities to handle invasion incidents. I thought to myself that this huge annual salary was indeed not given for nothing. After all, this work was definitely extremely dangerous. However, I actually liked it very much because it coincided with my original dream. I was just curious why Dad sent me here. Did he really want his son to be in danger? In the subsequent courses, the red-haired young lady also gave us a detailed explanation of the Immortals' combat auxiliary equipment. There were not only blood canisters that could automatically transfuse blood, but also combat potions that temporarily enhanced physical fitness. However, the young lady kindly reminded us that if this stuff was used excessively, the side effects would also be quite obvious. The candle teacher also gave us intensive guidance on the use of firearms. For physical training, there was still repetitive boring running and strength training. However, everyone gradually adapted to this harsh life, and naturally fewer and fewer people came to me for help sleeping. Just like that, everyone successfully completed the training courses and became official employees of Hualin. In the final training results ranking, third place was Xiao Ming, an unremarkable nobody during the training. Second place was the blonde young master. This ranking was within everyone's expectations, because he possessed the purest bloodline in the upper circle of immortals. Plus, with his tenacious willpower, he was actually able to stay up all night and complete the courses without my help sleeping. But the first place winner was somewhat beyond everyone's expectations. It was actually the blonde young lady. Carefully recalling her performance during training, although she had no leadership ability whatsoever and spoke harshly, she was very smart. After she understood the reward and punishment system of the training points, she strictly followed the most self-interested approach. During team training, she would unhesitatingly abandon people who weren't beneficial to the score, and her usual personal behavior was all aligned toward gaining points. Looking at the three people standing on the platform, I had an inexplicable premonition that I would definitely have some entanglement with them in the future. In the evening, a big shot came to the dormitory. Mang Jin Nam, the boss of Hualin Company. He was the first generation immortal who created the current situation. He told us that the training might be boring, but it was all life-saving stuff. He hoped we would study seriously. He then called out the blonde young master and the blonde young lady and congratulated them on their excellent results. I was wondering why such a godlike figure came here. Was it just to greet the first and second place winners? Adrian Cross? Hearing him call my name, I instantly stopped my speculation and immediately straightened up with my chest out, looking straight ahead. He walked up to me and asked, "Are you mixed blood?" I nodded. He stared straight at me for 10 seconds, then said softly, "Not bad." Then he left with his subordinates. When leaving, he suddenly turned back, winked at me, and told me he looked forward to seeing me at the company. After he left, the dormitory exploded, and everyone asked me what my background was. At that moment, the blonde young lady handed me a note. I opened it, and my expression changed dramatically. I realized I had been targeted by boss Myungjin Nam. Therefore, with an uneasy heart, I came to Hualin Company's external dispatch department. As soon as I entered the room, I heard someone inside talking loudly on the phone, complaining about why their department was assigned a new recruit. If there really were no veterans, sending over the first place from training would also be acceptable. This massive awkwardness left me frozen in place. At that moment, the red-haired beauty beside me told me to find a seat first and said she would teach me, the new recruit, how to work. Then she threw a Hualin personnel directory at me and told me to memorize it in one day and then burn it immediately. Also, except for eating and using the restroom, I couldn't leave my seat. I looked at the several people in the office and felt their obvious hostility toward me. I couldn't help but wonder if the higher-ups had assigned me to the wrong department. When eating with Xiaojin and the others in the evening, I asked them if anyone was making things difficult for them at work. They all said their departments were very friendly. Seeing my depressed expression, Xiaojin revealed some information to me. It turned out that boss Myongjin Nam had personally interfered with my transfer because the external dispatch department wasn't a place suitable for new recruits. It was a dangerous unit that only the elite of the elite could handle. And my current external security group 3 was particularly notorious. Legend had it that new recruits assigned to their department often didn't survive past 3 months. After hearing this, I had only one question in my mind. Where exactly did I offend the big boss? Online it said that if you feel tired, you should hypnotize yourself. Therefore, when I faced these 3 people's malicious difficulties again, I told myself that I was actually a prince from an oil-producing country here to experience civilian life. Just like that, at Hualien every day at work, I either memorized rosters or answered phones. Thanks to them, I learned a lot of personnel information. Take our team leader Zhongbong Li, for example. As a pure-blood immortal, he had no trace of superiority complex. He was the person with the highest combat level ability in Hualien. Supervisor Donghun Li was a mixed-blood immortal. Although not good at combat, he was a famous strategist. Staff member Jong Kim came from Special Forces. She was an enhanced human who had taken special drugs. Her combat ability was at the highest level of ordinary humans. Today, the team leader told me he would conduct a routine ability test on me. I followed the 3 of them to a mysterious control room. On the staff's large screen, I saw the blonde young master doing push-ups with difficulty in an enclosed space. I then learned that this was a gravity device. It could increase the gravity in the tester space several times over to enhance physical fitness. The current highest record was 9 times gravity. This was even created by my team leader Zhongbong Li. The blonde young master's team leader on the side was bragging about how awesome the young master's strength was. He then requested the staff to increase the gravity to 5 times. Looking at the blonde young master's face deformed under the gravitational pressure, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. I sighed that he was showing off way too much. Right after that, he vomited blood and fainted on the ground. At that moment, the supervisor urged me to go in quickly. After seeing me appear in the gravity room, team leader Zhongbong Li said softly to the supervisor beside him, "Our work isn't something just anyone can do. It's better for everyone if he gives up early." As the gravity kept increasing, I showed no signs of discomfort whatsoever, watching the gravity soar to 10 times. The staff member asked team leader Li in shock, "Should we continue to increase it?" As mechanical sounds came from around the gravity room, I knew the gravity had increased again. Although I didn't know how many times it was now, the intensity was only about the same as the last stage of shapeshifter training. I originally planned to stop after surpassing the blonde young master, but since I chose to shock them, I might as well unleash all my strength. At that moment, the staff outside asked me what 28 times 35 was. I instantly gave the answer. Then they gave a 3-digit multiplication problem, which I also answered instantly. The team leader and the other 2 stared blankly at me in the gravity room, thinking, is this even human? To maintain such a clear mind under n times gravitational pressure, this was something they had never seen since they started working. At that moment, team leader Li suggested taking me for an examination after the test ended, to see if I had taken any drugs that enhanced strength and mental power. If nothing was found, it would only prove that the field department had found a treasure this time. After the training ended, I felt my strength and stamina had increased a bit. If I could practice here long term, this would be a shortcut to enhancing my abilities. When I walked out of the gravity room, I suddenly felt my colleague's attitude toward me changed instantly. The red-haired beauty not only personally opened the door for me, but also enthusiastically handed me a towel. The panda supervisor also greeted me with a smile. Even the team leader's constant damn was gone. He kept urging the staff to show him the records. When we returned to the office, the red-haired beauty suddenly turned around and told me to work hard. It seemed they had officially accepted me as a team member. So would the next step be to give me official tasks? Just when I was looking forward to exciting combat missions, the panda supervisor threw 3 extremely thick books in front of me. Invader codes, potion types, and equipment usage methods. He told me to memorize them all within 4 days. Had this panda gone crazy from not eating bamboo? I couldn't help but ask him what use memorizing this stuff had. At that moment, the team leader came over and told me that if I didn't even understand the opponent's information and my own equipment, I would definitely be sending myself to death when executing missions. At that moment, I felt he seemed to be right. However, 4 days was too short. The panda supervisor then told me that he had only used 1 day back then. If even this non-combat personnel was this capable, what qualifications did I have to bargain? I spent the following time constantly memorizing. 4 days later, I faced the team's test for me. Before the test, the team leader told me that if I answered 1 question incorrectly, I would immediately go to the training ground and train for 1 hour. Therefore, I became a beautiful sight between the training ground and the office. Suddenly one day, on my way to the training ground, I ran into the team leader and the blonde young lady. They seemed to be discussing something. After seeing me, the team leader suddenly asked with a smile if I was a delinquent when I was in school. I told him there were no delinquents in my school because I didn't allow them. They wouldn't be delinquents just because you didn't allow it? Yes, because I didn't like the way they cursed. My words instantly silenced the entire place because everyone knew the team leader was a cursing expert. The team leader looked at me and smiled, asking if I was willing to have a sparring match with him. At that moment, everyone around looked at me. After all, the team leader was known as Hualin's strongest combat power. But I had Transformer bloodline. If I backed down now, how could I face my mom's bloodline? Therefore, I agreed without hesitation. The team leader immediately showed an evil smile. He then told me to meet at the sparring ground at 3 p.m. He also reminded me not to eat too much at lunch, otherwise vomiting all over the place wouldn't look good. Facing his provocation, I didn't refute at all. After all, fighting wasn't done with words. At 3 p.m., I arrived at the training ground as promised. Red-haired Jin told the team leader not to cripple me. The blonde young lady on the side also advised me not to resist stubbornly. It seemed no one was optimistic about me, but that was normal. After all, the team leader was said to have S-level combat power. For a newcomer like me to spar with him was completely asking for abuse. However, no one knew that I was the world's only dual bloodline possessor. I first launched a probing attack, but it was all flexibly dodged by the team leader. He even taunted me that my speed was too slow, so I deliberately left an opening. Who knew the team leader would instantly seize the opportunity and knock me dizzy with a heavy blow? Aside from Mom, this was the first time someone could do this to me. At that moment, the team leader looked at me provocatively and said, "How come you're done already?" I recalled the exchange just now. It turned out that the moment I threw my punch, the team leader directly grabbed my arm with one hand, then instantly twisted it to break it. At the same time, he used an elbow strike to make me dizzy. This series of moves made me understand what S-level combat power meant. It also made me put away my contempt. I had to get serious now. Then I started exchanging blow for blow with him, although I pushed my shapeshifter speed to the extreme. The number of times I hit him was still very few. Just when I tried to use the Immortal's perception ability to predict his movements in advance, he suddenly disappeared from my sight. This was the breath-hiding skill that Teacher Stick had demonstrated. I immediately retreated reflexively, and barely avoided the team leader's tricky split kick. His movements were too fast. I couldn't find any opportunity to counterattack. But with shapeshifter power, I should be faster. It seemed bloodline power couldn't decide everything. Meeting a pure blood immortal like the team leader who had trained for a long time could still crush me, but I wouldn't admit defeat obediently. While dodging my attacks, the team leader was using his mouth to the fullest, constantly using words to provoke me. Now he was taunting me again, saying that if I just wanted to win girls' cheers, I could become an entertainer since my physique was quite good. Could I still tolerate this? I immediately accumulated maximum power and blasted a punch over. But the team leader was waiting for this reckless strike. With a casual quick jab, he made my head bleed. Unfortunately, he still underestimated my brute force. I suddenly grabbed him and used my powerful strength to instantly lock his arms and torso. As my arms kept tightening, sounds of bones cracking came to my ears. Just when I wanted to throw him down to end the battle, my neck suddenly received a heavy blow. At that moment, the team leader stood with his hands in his pockets looking at me, collapsed on the ground. There was no sign that his arms had been restrained. What was going on? It turned out that after losing to the team leader in yesterday's one-on-one fight, I felt very puzzled about being suddenly knocked out at the end. I had clearly locked the team leader's hands, so how did he attack me? I couldn't help but ask him if he had practiced Iron Head skill, but he told me this was a company, not a school. If I wanted to know the answer, I had to find it out myself and submit a report to him. Just when I was deep in thought, the analysis department team leader who was giving a lecture mentioned human illusions. Illusions, wait. I suddenly remembered that Teacher Stick once said that hiding one's presence was using the Immortal's ability to cut off the opponent's perception. What if instead of cutting it off, you transmitted false information to the opponent? At that moment, I felt like I had locked the team leader's arms, but the actual situation was probably that the team leader deliberately gave me false information. So how did he know that I would lunge at him at that moment? I returned to my office with questions. Looking at the team leader chatting with colleagues, I suddenly accelerated and rushed toward him. Sensing the threat, he kicked the desk. Using the reaction force, he instantly pulled away from me. At this moment, I maximized my perception ability, blocked out the surrounding sounds, and locked my mental power onto the team leader. Then his next move should be to the left. I threw a punch without hesitation. Sure enough, my judgment was correct, although the attack was still easily blocked by the team leader. Then I was sent flying by an uppercut. At this moment, the colleagues around were all looking at me with bewildered expressions, thinking whether my brain had gone haywire. The team leader also asked me in surprise if I was trying to rebel. I told him this was the report I was submitting to him, because I felt this was closer to the correct answer than writing it on paper. Faced with my response, the team leader showed a strange smile. Interesting. You can actually learn and apply immediately. The next day, as a newcomer, I was actually arranged to go on a mission with the red-haired Auntie Kim. Wearing combat gear for the first time, I was extremely excited, feeling that I must look incredibly cool at this moment. After arriving at the mission point, looking at the rotating black hole in the wheat field, I remembered what I had experienced 9 years ago, sighing that today I had finally taken the first step toward my dream. Just as Auntie Kim and I finished confirming the equipment we carried, the black hole before our eyes suddenly expanded dramatically in an instant. I immediately transmitted the on-site situation to headquarters. The intelligent computer also sent an information prompt. Current status confirmed. Black hole in sea level tide formation. Large number of invaders approaching. Danger perceived. I looked at the few households not far away, asked Auntie Kim whether we should just go back like this. Auntie Kim didn't answer me, only asked headquarters how long support would take. Headquarters informed that it would take another 15 minutes. But at this moment, the invaders codenamed Blind Dogs had already emerged from the black hole. Headquarters ordered us to evacuate immediately. After all, the two of us couldn't possibly deal with so many invaders. Moreover, Immortal team members were precious human resources, and from the company's standpoint, they couldn't make an equivalent exchange between us and more than 10 ordinary people. Although I didn't want to abandon the innocent villagers at all, at this moment I had to wait for Auntie Kim's command. With a gunshot, a blind dog that had just emerged from the black hole was instantly headshot. Auntie Kim responded to headquarters' order with her action. At this moment, I excitedly said to Auntie Kim, "Senior, can I fall in love with you?" Auntie Kim boasted that she could transform into a Sailor Moon warrior. The key point was that naive me actually believed it. She and I stood in front of the open black hole, continuously firing. The crossfire formed a death zone in front of us. As the supplies were about to run out, I asked Auntie Kim what we should do next. She told me that as long as we could effectively gather the monsters together, she would transform into a Sailor Moon warrior and eliminate them, just as I was imagining what Auntie Kim would look like after transforming. A blind dog broke through the firepower net and rushed in front of me, but the next second it was slapped away by Auntie Kim. Then, facing the blind dogs swarming forward, Auntie Kim actually rushed up directly and engaged in physical communication with them. I felt the surging explosive power within Auntie Kim's body, curious about how this enhanced human was trained, because at this moment, she could definitely compare with the strong ones of special races. I stood behind Auntie Kim providing long-range support, as the last supply was exhausted. I also joined the melee combat, although Auntie Kim only treated me as bait to attract invaders. But at least I had dual bloodline talents. Standing there as decoration would be too embarrassing. During the battle with the blind dogs, I kept learning Auntie Kim's combat techniques. After all, she had a level close combat power. Just at the moment I turned sideways to observe, a blind dog that had circled behind bit my hand. I immediately pulled out the short blade from my waist and knocked it away. At this moment, I remembered what Auntie Kim had said earlier. As long as the invaders could be effectively concentrated together, she could use her transformation ultimate move to kill them instantly. Then I would properly play the role of bait and try. So I released my aura and mixed in the wild killing intent that Wanmok teacher taught me. These damn dogs indeed turned all their attention to me, then rushed toward me like a tide. While blocking the blind dog's attacks, I shouted for Auntie Kim's ultimate move. Seeing the situation, Auntie Kim panicked too and cursed that I was a fool. At this moment, facing blind dogs lunging from multiple directions, I could only defend against attacks that could cause fatal damage to me, then counterattack using various parts of my body. I was clear that I couldn't let a single invader escape, because behind me was a village of ordinary people. Just like this, I didn't know how much time had passed. With a series of continuous gunshots, the blind dogs attacking me all fell to the ground. It turned out that the blonde young master had led a team to support us. At this moment, Auntie Kim also hurried over and asked me how I was. Standing covered in wounds in the middle of a pile of blind dog corpses, I told her all invaders had been eliminated. Then I passed out. The support squad leader looked at the blind dogs all over the ground, asked Auntie Kim in surprise, "Did you two handle this? 2 people? No, no, no. This was all done by that kid on the ground alone. I became famous again this time." After returning to headquarters, the furious team leader Lee asked us why we didn't follow the evacuation order. I told him it was because the communication equipment broke. The team leader said I was insulting his intelligence. At this moment, Auntie Kim told the team leader she would take all responsibility. The team leader laughed in extreme anger, telling Auntie Kim what could a level 1 employee take responsibility for. Did she want to resign? Auntie Kim was immediately speechless. The team leader told us that this time it couldn't be resolved with just a report. A special disciplinary meeting needed to be held, told us to wait for the processing notice. Then he asked me if I thought I did well this time. I thought to myself, if you ask me like this, can I still praise myself as awesome? Immediately said loudly that I did terribly. The team leader looked at me meaningfully, then told me to write a self-criticism report for him every day. Auntie Kim's and my combat achievements quickly spread throughout the company. At this moment, I also understood one thing. As an intern employee, I had no salary reduction or point deduction. Therefore, Auntie Kim would bear all responsibility for this incident. Reasonably speaking, as a company employee, being punished for violating rules was reasonable. However, that situation was to save people. At this moment, I was somewhat confused. Suddenly, a warm hand gently pressed on my shoulder. It was Auntie Kim. She patted me, told me that yesterday's battle performance was very good. Looking at Auntie Kim's gentle eyes, I felt a ray of sunshine instantly dispelled the gloom in my heart. After returning home, I chatted with my mother about what happened today. She immediately asked me for Auntie Kim's photo, because she was very curious whether Auntie Kim had the features to become her daughter-in-law. I hurriedly explained that Auntie Kim was my senior, but Mom said a woman 3 years older brings a fortune. I was immediately made to have wild thoughts by what she said. The next day, Auntie Kim faced the company's disciplinary meeting for her, when the presiding judge asked whether Auntie Kim deliberately ignored headquarters order and continued the mission. Team leader Lee immediately interrupted, saying that such things happening in the combat department were not strange. The presiding judge then asked me whether I was forced by Auntie Kim to continue the mission. I told the presiding judge that no one forced me, I just made the best choice under the circumstances at that time. Another judge angrily rebuked me, saying, "What does an intern know?" At this moment, Team leader Lee immediately said I had been employed for several months. What was there not to understand? Were certain people questioning the training camp's teaching ability? I then told the presiding judge that in this mission we saved many civilians. Before the presiding judge could speak, team leader Lee hurriedly said that saving people was enough. Was there anything more important than saving people? Old Lee's protective behavior finally made the presiding judge unable to bear it. He told the team leader to get out immediately. Old Lee told him that he was Anti-Kim's team leader, and the team leader must attend team members' disciplinary meetings. This made the presiding judge so angry his eyes went dark. After I left the conference room, the young guy from the inspection team told me that people like Old Lee who protect team members were quite good. However, this would affect his own personnel evaluation. I really didn't expect that this foul-mouthed team leader would risk his own future for his team members. After returning to Group 3's office, Manager Panda asked me how the meeting atmosphere was. I told him the team leader was frantically saving the situation. He said this was Old Lee's routine operation. Then he meaningfully asked me if anything else happened. Anything else? I suddenly remembered that the blonde young man who went out with me had asked me whether I wanted to join the inspection team. But how would Manager Panda, who had been in the office all along, know about this? Just now, the team leader brought Anti-Kim back to the office. Under our strong efforts, Anti-Kim only received a punishment of being unable to participate in combat for 30 days. But the team leader didn't seem satisfied. This guy scrutinized the reflection report I wrote for a while, then called me to the office and asked me why I wrote his name wrong. This was obviously venting his anger on me. Anti-Kim, who felt sorry for me, hurriedly took me away under the pretext of guiding my work, then taught me the secret to dealing with the team leader's attacks. Having obtained the secret, I couldn't wait to actively seek one-on-one practice with the team leader. While attacking, I fully opened my immortal perception, trying hard to let my feelings judge the team leader's attack routes, rather than directly observing with my naked eyes. Although I successfully dodged several attacks, but the good times didn't last long. The foul-mouthed team leader caught one of my mistakes, directly knocked me down with a whip kick. At this moment, Manager Panda, who was watching the excitement, said in surprise, 6 minutes and 1 second. Not bad. You broke the record this time. I lay on the ground covering my swollen back, cursing in my heart that these two people were truly heartless. The next day, the team leader asked me with a dark face whether I had received a job-hopping invitation. I told him that Cameron Song from the inspection team had mentioned this to me. However, I didn't pay attention to it. At this moment, Cameron Song mysteriously appeared in Group 3's office. He had just greeted me. Then he was kicked away by the furious team leader, just as the team leader was about to follow up with another blow. Inspection team leader Pilro Park appeared in time to stop him. He told the team leader that he arranged for Cameron Song to come ask me. After all, rather than staying in Group 3, which only brought hardship, it would be better to go to the inspection team with great promotion opportunities. Hearing this before I could say anything, my silly team leader actually stood directly in the center of the office and shouted that I was his. Whoever dared to snatch me could come out and fight him. This crazy behavior immediately scared people from other groups into trembling. At this moment, Pilro Park said he wanted to hear my opinion and encouraged me not to be afraid, to speak boldly. In his expectant gaze, I told him I would always stay in Group 3. The foul-mouthed team leader immediately started showing off in front of Pilro Park upon hearing this. At this moment, the two from the inspection team looked at me in silence for a moment, then turned and left. Then the team leader told me, since the last gravity incident, team leaders from various groups had taken notice of me. Plus, this time, Anti-Kim and I fought against 300 blind dogs head-on. I was now very famous in the company. He was very satisfied with my performance today, so he decided to reward me by fighting with him again. Just as the two of us were about to start, Manager Panda notified us that a mission had come. It turned out that this time we had to capture a special race with shape-shifting abilities, and I was specifically arranged to go on a mission with 2 newcomers from other groups. I asked the manager if there would be any danger with all newcomers. He told me that was exactly why I was arranged to participate, because my duty in this mission was to serve as a bodyguard for the 2 newcomers. Moreover, these 2 newcomers were both my former roommates. Roommates? I immediately became excited about this mission. The next day, the 4-person mission team gathered together in the conference room, and only then did I realize that my teammates were actually the blonde young master and the blonde young lady, and the captain was Manager Simon Kang from the analysis team. After arriving at the mission location, Captain Simon Kang had a brief meeting with the person in charge of the special affairs team, then began assigning tasks. The blonde young lady and I were responsible for monitoring the situation at Gate 5, while the blonde young master alone searched for the target at the travel agency booth. The blonde young lady and I focused intently on the passing crowds, but didn't discover any suspicious people at all. At this moment, the blonde young master told everyone through the communicator that he had found the target. Please confirm the man wearing a blue shirt and light cyan pants. But I couldn't tell at all what difference there was between the target he mentioned and other people. The blonde young lady told me this was the advantage of pure-blooded immortals. They were more sensitive, so they could perceive differences in everything. At this moment, the special affairs team also confirmed the target and prepared to implement the capture. At this moment, I suddenly felt something was wrong. Was the target really just one person? Suddenly, several people leaped out from the crowd and began attacking the armed special affairs team members. Immediately, the scene became chaotic. The blonde young lady and I quickly went forward to support. One person, seeing that the blonde young lady was a girl, wanted to sneak attack from behind, but was knocked down by her low sweep kick. At this moment, I reported to command that all the attackers were psychs. Now my perception had captured 5 people, but they were all fleeing in all directions. Just when I didn't know what to do, Manager Kang suddenly arranged for me to immediately chase target number 8 at the left gate, while allowing me to engage in combat that wouldn't endanger the opponent's life. It turned out that before the team executed the mission, Manager Kang had already reviewed my relevant information and was very clear that I had formidable close combat abilities. At this moment, battles everywhere were still intensely ongoing. The blonde young master was already injured. Multiple security guards dispatched by the authorities were also shot to ensure the safety of the blonde young lady and the blonde young master. Manager Kang also joined the battle. He silently appeared behind an armed thug, directly broke his neck, then calmly pulled out a gun and shot dead the knife-wielding psych coming toward him. It turned out he was also a low-key strong person. At this moment, I had tracked the target to the underground parking garage. The buzz-cut man suddenly stopped, turned his head and asked me, "You kid really have good stamina. Are you an immortal?" I asked him. "Can't you tell by looking at my face?" He was silent for a moment, told me that by appearance he really couldn't tell. This statement immediately ignited my anger and I prepared to rush up and take him down. At this moment, the buzz-cut man told me choosing to chase him alone was definitely a mistake because he was a super strength enhanced, super-powered individual, and with his strength he could easily crush my head. While he kept showing off, I was calculating when the support team would arrive. When I confirmed that they would only arrive in 10 minutes, I suddenly smiled. This time I could finally fight at full strength. At this moment, facing the heavy punch the big guy swung at me, I quickly used my immortal perception to find the position of his wrist, then directly unleashed the power of the Transformer race and firmly clamped it. As the force in my hand continuously increased, the big guy's wrist bone was crushed into fragments by me. I casually pushed him backward, then immediately sprinted toward him. After ducking to avoid his makeshift counterattack, I ended the battle with a rising dragon punch. At this moment, I walked in front of the black bag the big guy had dropped, said in a low voice, "I heard that Transformers can transform into any object they've seen, but they probably can't be immune to water and fire. Why don't we try it?" I held the lighter and slowly extended it toward it. "Handsome guy, you're tough, you're awesome, I surrender." A cute female voice came from the backpack. "Don't rush. I'm still quite curious about one thing." I continued to slowly bring the lighter closer. "I can make a deal with you, but can you keep that thing away from me?" At this moment, the voice from the black bag clearly had a crying tone. I put away the lighter and told her she could transform into human form, then took off my jacket and covered the black bag. 5 minutes later, Manager Kang arrived at the underground parking garage with the others. Looking at the big guy on the ground and the red-haired girl before him, he was full of confusion. I told him that the red-haired girl before us was the mission target. At this moment, the blonde young master walked over dragging his injured body. He was very dissatisfied with his performance in this mission. I then whispered in his ear that the final target was captured by yours truly. His pride made him almost spit blood on the spot. Watching his frantic appearance made me secretly pleased, who told him to always use his pure-blooded identity to show off in front of me. At this moment, the leader of the special affairs team told me the person I knocked down was a level 3 wanted criminal. I must have had a bloody battle with him just now. A bloody battle, but I only used one punch. The matter of me handling the wanted criminal alone quickly spread throughout the company again. Boss Myungjin Nam even specially met with me because of this. After a round of praise, he also asked me what reward I wanted. I boldly asked him for a sum of bonus money. When I handed the large sum of cash to my mother, the money lover specially bought premium beef to reward me. After the airport mission ended, I executed several more field missions. Through continuous combat, my combat power was also constantly improving. Now I could fight with the team leader for 10 minutes without being defeated. However, I could still feel that the team leader hadn't used his full strength. After a department gathering, having drunk some alcohol, I finally mustered the courage to make a request to the team leader. Could he fight me seriously? The team leader happily told me, "See you at the training ground in 5 minutes." Just as the two of us were intensely fighting behind closed doors, Manager Panda quietly came to the scene. At this moment, I happened to break the team leader's right arm with a heavy punch, but this didn't affect the team leader's attack at all. After he charged forward, he quickly launched an attack with his left hand. I precisely grabbed his wrist, just as I was preparing to counterattack. The team leader swung his already broken right hand to attack me. Having relaxed my guard on his right hand, I was directly knocked out with one strike. At this moment, the team leader said to Manager Panda on the side, this was the first time since him that someone had broken his arm. I really didn't expect that the seemingly useless Manager Panda was also hiding formidable combat power. Today, the Human Resources Department began performance evaluations for the interns, and as a person targeted by Boss Myungjin Nam, my file was pulled out separately. Overall combat ability was rated B level, immortal ability was rated D level. The manager looked at my miserable evaluation indicators and couldn't help but complain about how such trash like me caught the boss's attention. Moreover, the file also noted a special item personally added by the team leader. The content was actually that my alcohol tolerance couldn't be measured. At this moment, the evaluation personnel's conclusion about me was a drunkard who was good at fighting. In the office, I asked Manager Panda why my immortal ability rating was so low. He told me this thing was rated based on sensitivity. I could sleep soundly during group training, so the HR department considered me a mixed blood trash with weak bloodline. And my judgment score wasn't high because last time Auntie Kim and I violated regulations to fight several hundred blind dogs head-on. As for the red number 1 next to my name, that meant if I didn't perform well in the subsequent concentrated test, I would be the first one to be dismissed. At this moment, the broadcast notified all Hualin newcomers to gather at the training ground. The management department would combine personnel evaluations and this concentrated test results to determine whether newcomers could ultimately be employed. At the training ground, I met my roommates from newcomer training, Xiao Jin and Xiao Fang. These two silly guys called me a pre-unemployed person as soon as we met, then consoled me not to be too depressed. When I had no food to eat, they would help me out. I hadn't even been fired yet, and these two clowns started mocking me. And just at this time, boss Myeonjin Nam came to the training ground. He said how could he miss the most exciting sparring, then signaled for the test to begin, and the blonde young master, as a pure blood among purebloods. His first chosen opponent was actually me. Perhaps I performed too excellently in certain aspects. In the observation ability test, I found all the differences in only 3.48 seconds. In the gravity test, I broke the company record with 12 times gravity. In cardiopulmonary endurance, strength, and reflex nerves, I far exceeded others by miles. As an aristocrat among purebloods, he couldn't tolerate a mixed blood like me being so dazzling. But he didn't know that because I didn't want people to discover my transformer identity, I had been hiding my strength. I simply thought that as long as I seriously made my move, I could be stronger than any immortal. But this was just my arrogance. With team leader Lee, I witnessed the true strong ones among immortals. From now on, I wouldn't hide anymore. I would give my all to everything before me. The result was that all newly employed staff were beaten by me. Finally, I smoothly passed the test with a complete victory record. Became an official level 3 employee of Hualin. Just on my way home from work, company director Daniel Kim actually offered to give me a ride, so I got into his Mercedes G-Wagon. In the car, Daniel Kim told me he was advancing a project and hoped I could join. Faced with his invitation, I didn't agree directly. After all, I didn't even know what the project was about. Then he also gave me a large piece of premium beef. His operations left naive me somewhat confused. After returning home, my mother and I ate delicious grilled meat and discussed Daniel Kim's intention in seeking me out alone. Had he discovered my transformer identity? In the subsequent work, I discovered that Security Group 3, where I was, actually had almost no business. The team leader spent his days either in meetings or chatting and boasting with people. I asked Auntie Kim if bonuses could still be realized staying like this every day. Auntie Kim told me without performance, where would bonuses come from? Because Hualin's leadership disliked the team leader, they didn't normally assign work to Group 3. At this moment, I couldn't help but say, damn, wasn't the promised annual salary of 65 million in the contract a scam? How long could the team sustain without performance? At this moment, Auntie Kim told me not to worry. Our manager was capable. He could intervene midway in miscellaneous matters handled by other groups, thus obtaining compensation. Moreover, although the team leader wandered around all day, he would occasionally find big jobs for us. At this moment, in Group 3's group chat, the team leader actually said we would have a dinner gathering. The location was at the manager's home. But when I arrived at the destination with them, I discovered this was actually an underground conference room. It turned out that the authorities had discovered a new material called energy storage stones in the white hole. This was a treasure that could store halos internally, and superpowered individuals among the 4 special races could effectively store halo energy in them. This might open a new era of energy development. These energy storage stones were temporarily divided into 5 levels from D to AA. A D-level energy storage stone could send a plane from Incheon to New York. Moreover, an ordinary superpowered individual carrying an AA level energy storage stone could actually contend with S-level transformers. At this moment, Manager Panda said that if the temporarily highest level was AA, then S-level energy storage must have already been discovered. Team leader Lee nodded affirmatively, then indicated the quantity was about 50. The first to discover them was the superpowered group. Initially, they wanted to take it all, but later, they knew this thing was actually a hot potato. Then they requested support from the authorities, and it was finally decided that the Hualin Immortal Special Forces would guard the energy storage stones. And our formidable Group 3 also got to share some of the spoils in this mission. 2 days later, Auntie Kim and I came fully armed to the control area of the energy storage stones. As a result, on the day of execution, we encountered someone forcibly entering. In the continuous chase, we actually came near the opened white hole. The intruder went directly into the white hole, in the horrified eyes of the Special Affairs team personnel executing on the side. Auntie Kim and I chased in without hesitation. At the moment of entry, an intense dizziness continuously impacted my brain. Fortunately, with the Transformer's robust physique, I regained consciousness after a brief period of confusion. At this moment, 2 superpowered individuals stood before me. These should be the gatekeepers sent by the organization that discovered the energy storage stones. I softly called out to Auntie Kim beside me, but at this moment she had no response. She should still be in the dizzy state after crossing the alternate space. At this moment, the red-haired man opposite asked me who exactly I was. I told him I was a member of the Immortal Special Forces and had entered the white hole while tracking an important criminal. From this moment on, to facilitate the arrest operation, I would take partial combat command authority in this area. The red-haired man opposite, hearing my such forceful attitude, exploded immediately. A ball of flames suddenly gathered in his hands, told me I must return the same way within 3 seconds or he would make me pay. I didn't confront him head-on either. Casually tossed out a smoke bomb, then immediately carried Auntie Kim on my back and quickly disappeared from the gatekeeper's view. On the way to Team Leader Lee's planned location, I actually encountered a large monster, the shark earthworm. Facing its attack, I responded with a single blade in hand. In the continuous exchange, I found the right opportunity and slashed it in half with one strike. After Auntie Kim's body adapted to the environment of the alternate world, she was very surprised by my performance. After all, in her view, after entering the white hole, we would face attacks from the gatekeepers. Being able to shake off the gatekeepers' pursuit within 2 days would be extremely fortunate. But unexpectedly, I solved the problem with one smoke bomb. And as a newcomer facing a large monster for the first time, not only could I resolve the battle within a few minutes, I could even test my newly learned combat skills. Just as she was still pondering my combat details, I urged her to quickly head toward the planned destination. At the same time, in the transport team that the team leader was following, the detector suddenly sounded an alarm. A group of beastmen suddenly appeared right in front of the transport team. In the loud shout of a beastman leader, this group of monsters launched a fierce assault on the transport team. An encounter battle officially began, just as the main transport team was fighting with the beastmen. Auntie Kim and I were tracking their traces. This was already the 3rd day since entering the white hole. Still hadn't discovered any sign of the main transport team. A man and woman alone together for a long time. Sooner or later, something would happen if this continued. I couldn't help but ask Auntie Kim, since she wasn't an immortal, why did she stay at the company to work? Auntie Kim didn't answer me immediately, but instead asked me the reason I wanted to stay at the company. I remembered things I experienced as a child, then told her it was probably for world peace. Auntie Kim listened in silence, then softly said one sentence, "I'm here for revenge." Revenge? Then we're really not compatible. At midnight, I was suddenly awakened by unusual activity outside. At this moment, Auntie Kim also woke up. She told me to use my perception to detect how many people were outside. I told her to. Then Auntie Kim picked up her shotgun to prepare for confrontation, while I chose to hide inside the cave for a sneak attack. At this moment, the people outside also discovered Auntie Kim. The 3 held guns in confrontation at the entrance. Auntie Kim proactively put down her gun and asked about their identities to attract their attention. The 2 were also very vigilant, revealing nothing while in control of the situation, instead asking Auntie Kim where she was affiliated. Just as one of them walked toward the dark cave entrance, I, hidden inside, instantly launched an attack. This sudden situation made the other person outside the cave panic immediately. Just at the moment he raised his gun to aim, Auntie Kim raised her hand and knocked him down with an elbow strike. At this moment, both of them had completely lost their combat ability. Auntie Kim and I checked the equipment they were carrying, and surprisingly found complete communication devices and a large gun. Although the 2 made all kinds of excuses when facing our interrogation, Auntie Kim and I had basically confirmed that they must also be here to attack the transport convoy and seize the energy stones. Moreover, their accomplices had very likely already made contact with the transport convoy, so Auntie Kim temporarily changed our battle plan. Meanwhile, on the transport convoy's side, they unexpectedly encountered a senior officer from the Prometheus group. This was none other than the lumberjack Luke Quick Axbreen, known as the professional headhunter. At this moment, the captain at the front signaled Team Leader Lee to stall for time, while he arranged for people to quietly break through and call for help. Old Lee immediately shouted provocatively, "Little Breen seems pretty idle lately, huh? Jungbong Lee, you little brat, dare to call me Little Breen? I'm 2 years older than you." Luke Quick Axbreen shouted angrily at Old Lee. Old Lee told Breen that those years when he was worse than a beast didn't count, and besides, he had said last time that the next time they met would be when he twisted his head off. Just as Luke Quick Axbreen was about to step forward and fight Old Lee one-on-one, several team members were attacked in succession and fell down. At this moment, a purple-haired woman appeared in the area with a group of masked men. She told Old Lee that she had already surrounded them completely, and there were gunmen lying in ambush at the high ground, making escape impossible. Just as Old Lee was preparing to fight desperately, bang! A gunshot rang out, and the masked man who had just contacted the gunman was shot in the head. This inexplicable shot made the purple-haired woman panic, and on the mountaintop opposite, Auntie Kim's large gun locked onto another target. A few hours before the Prometheus squad's attack, 2 superhumans in the team stood at the mountaintop vantage point, one serving as a lookout, and the other as the main attacker. An unusual sound alerted the masked lookout, who lowered his binoculars and asked his teammate if he had heard anything. The sniper glanced at the communication device. Could it be intruders? We haven't received any signal here. The lookout was certain that what he just heard wasn't an illusion. I definitely heard something. Suddenly sensing an attacking afterimage beside him, he had just turned his head, when the next moment he was punched directly into the ground. The sniper was scared out of his wits. He had just reacted and wanted to fight back, when the opponent came straight at him with a military knife. The blade slashed across his throat, and blood spurted out like a fountain. The lookout's head was stepped on the ground, unable to move at all, still struggling to know who had taken them down so directly. From the corner of my eye, I saw Auntie Kim coming over with a sniper rifle on her back. I had to put on a show, so I questioned the 2 defeated opponents with authority. I stripped both superhumans, bound their arms behind them, and threw them on the ground like dead dogs. I quickly went out and followed behind Auntie Kim, asking, "This is already the 5th group of superhuman, snipers, and hybrid immortal guards. What do you think? Should we keep looking?" Auntie Kim looked around before speaking. "We've already searched all the places suitable for sniper positions. Codename Jack. Sniping begins." Hearing the voice from from the walkie-talkie in my hand, I thought, is this what it means to infiltrate the enemy? I couldn't help but sigh. Looks like it's starting. Auntie Kim dropped the case on the ground with a thud, her movements clean and efficient. Then let's get ready too. Hearing the clicking sounds by my ear, my eyes nearly popped out in shock. That was my senior's exclusive weapon. Auntie Kim smiled proudly. The purple-haired woman looked at the distant sniper position and thought, this is troublesome now. The sniper position has been taken. Who could it be? Team leader Lee seized this opportunity to issue the order directly. All members of the Immortal Special Forces assume combat formation. All team members were on high alert, quickly getting into formation, just waiting for the battle to begin. The purple-haired woman sensed something was wrong and began to panic, frantically calling into the walkie-talkie, codename Ralph. A playful "yes, I'm here" came through the walkie-talkie, which made the purple-haired woman question her existence, shouting, "Who the hell are you?" Since you're asking, I naturally have to showcase my personal charm. Height, 185 centimeters, combining both hotness and cuteness in one package. The purple-haired woman felt more disgusted the more she listened. She had never seen anyone so shameless, and through gritted teeth she spat out, "Lunatic!" She immediately turned and ordered the superhumans behind her to take them all out. In an instant, bullets rained everywhere. Both sides began a fierce weapons exchange, neither willing to back down. The purple-haired woman decided to use her ultimate move. She called over a superhuman subordinate and ordered, "Find the location of the communication equipment, and send Double B7 over there." Team leader Youngbong Lee had gone into a killing frenzy. He swept fire across the field, nearly blasting the lumberjack Luke Quick Axebreen's butt. This directly caught his attention. "Your opponent is right here!" He raised his axe, the excitement in his eyes impossible to hide. Youngbong Lee didn't take him seriously at all, deliberately smiling and saying, "Big brother is a bit busy right now. Let's chat later, okay?" Luke Quick Axebreen was so angry his teeth ground together. "You little punk pretending to be the big brother. Aren't you done yet? You're the punk." Youngbong Lee's sharp tongue acted up again. This was unbearable. Luke Quick Axebreen flew into a rage. He raised both axes and charged forward. Youngbong Lee unceremoniously aimed his gun at him and unleashed a barrage of fire. On this side, after Auntie Kim fired a shot, she immediately said, "Move to the next sniper position." We had barely taken 2 steps when I sensed something unusual. A muscular guy wearing a tank top, along with 2 superhumans, just walked right over in plain sight. "What's going on?" Seeing superhumans coming straight at us without hiding or dodging is really a first. The muscular man had a sinister look on his face. Clearly not a good person. "You keep running around," which really made us search hard. "But tell me, what's your relationship with that woman behind you?" This question left me confused. Suddenly remembering the scene of carrying Auntie Kim on my back earlier, I honestly replied, "A relationship where legs wrap around waist." The muscular man exploded when he heard this, grinding his teeth in anger. He actually charged straight at me. As he charged over to punch me in the face, my body predicted it in advance and dodged in time. Seeing that his punch missed, the muscular man's body suddenly mutated and grew spikes. I was also severely startled by this scene. Spikes actually sprouted from his elbows. I had never encountered such a situation before. Getting stabbed by those would be terrible. I immediately counterattacked with an elbow strike. Where did he go? As a dual bloodline possessor of the Transformer and Immortal races, I had once again encountered someone with faster reflexes than mine. I was somewhat terrified, not knowing from which direction he would suddenly punch me. Seeing Auntie Kim fire a shot at him at just the right moment, which he also dodged, this guy seemed quite troublesome. Auntie Kim was also frightened by such strong reflexes. He dodged just by glancing at the gun barrel's direction. That guy called Double B7. His reflexes are incredibly sharp, but as a dual bloodline possessor of the Transformer and Immortal races, how could I just keep letting him hit me? Thanks to this, he showed an opening. Taking advantage of his unpreparedness, I quickly threw a punch at the ribs under his armpit. Suddenly, my wrist was grabbed by him, unable to move at all. I was scared into a cold sweat. This superhuman strength was actually this terrifying. A sudden sound made my nerves tense up instantly. Good God, what exactly is he? Double B7 actually transformed directly into a huge wolf-like monster, with eyes glowing red and a row of menacing fangs in his mouth. Only then did I realize that this guy was a Transformer powerhouse. The Transformer powerhouse across from me threw a punch at me directly. I had no chance to counterattack at all. I was knocked flying to the ground in one strike. Damn Prometheus. Auntie Kim picked up her gun, preparing to shoot again. Crooked teeth and patchy fur, he's a hybrid transformer created through experimentation. Seeing Auntie Kim about to rush forward and face him alone, as a man, how could I let a woman shield me? I reached out to stop her and said coolly, "You step aside." Auntie Kim was stunned and somewhat conflicted. "I'll go with you. It's hard for you to deal with him alone. A man's pride couldn't be lost." I firmly stated, "Senior, you're in charge of maintaining the battlefield." Auntie Kim really just turned and walked away, leaving me alone to face this terrifying transformer. The hybrid transformer bared its fangs, foul-smelling saliva constantly dripping from its mouth, its eyes staring straight at me. With an immortal's keen senses, even without saying it, I knew this guy wasn't some hybrid special race. He was just a monster that had lost its rationality and wanted a good meal, an artificially created invader. It seemed defeating him wouldn't be an easy task. He moved, directly showing his claws and swiftly swiping at me. I didn't dodge the first one earlier, but this second time I dodged it with a simple sidestep. It seemed my perception had gotten stronger. Double B7 followed with another claw strike so fast, coming straight for my head. The intense impact made me retreat repeatedly. Fortunately, my hat blocked the strike for me. That was really close. Missing again and again, the hybrid transformer was completely enraged, throwing its head back and roaring loudly. The air around seemed to have a tearing sensation. Auntie Kim behind me nervously broke into a cold sweat. This is wild, killing intent. Even standing here, I feel my whole body is constrained. Is it really okay to face him alone? Double B7 burst forward at high speed again, leaving only afterimages in the air. Without any technique, just using the fastest speed combined with the strongest attack power to deliver a fatal blow. I seem to have found the method in his attacks and dodged with another sidestep. I looked back provocatively. Bang, bang. I fired 2 shots directly at Double B7, but he sensed them all and they only hit his arms. This infuriated him even more, his eyes flashing with cold light. Damn, out of bullets. Looks like I'll have to go hands-on. After being completely enraged, the hybrid transformer had lost all rationality, attacking recklessly and continuously. I needed to find a way to resolve this quickly. Dodging his head strike, I punched directly at his waist. Wait, why is his skin as hard as stone? I was frightened into a cold sweat. What kind of strange creature have I encountered? His body actually keeps changing. He slashed wildly at me again with his claws. I could only keep retreating, dodging his attacks in time. His body was gradually surrounded by a ring of electric current, and his abdominal muscles had actually evolved stone armor. In an instant, his entire body transformed with armor. Modification? This should be a superpower that can freely adjust and use bone composition materials. Actually, I had already guessed some of this. He really is a hybrid experimental subject of transformer and superhuman races. Meanwhile, on Team Leader Lee's side, a superhuman was shot directly in the head with a bang, blood splattering everywhere. He collapsed with a thud. The superhuman side was already being beaten back repeatedly. Team Leader Jongbong Lee looked at Luke Quick Axe Breen across from him and questioned coldly, "That woman just mentioned Double B7, right? That name sounds like a toy. What exactly did you send over there?" Luke Quick Axe Breen laughed arrogantly and smugly. "What, worried about your friends over there? Who's worried? I actually hope one of those guys gets a good beating. That's good. Although I don't know how many people are over there, the guy I sent can't be dealt with even by an ordinary squad's forces. They'll all end up in that guy's belly soon." Saying this, he grabbed his double axes and charged forward. Team leader Jongbong Lee smiled. "An ordinary squad's forces? That level won't cut it." On this side, I bent down to dodge BB7's powerful attack and punched hard directly at his ribs. Modification ability that can wrap the whole body with an exoskeleton combined with the Transformer race's powerful strength. Although his physical abilities are heaven-defying, I have the ability to learn while getting beaten. His claws swung at me fiercely again, becoming even more vicious and fast. Whoosh! He slammed down with one palm strike. The next instant, he froze directly. How is it possible he disappeared in an instant? As a dual bloodline possessor of the Transformer and Immortal races, let me show you my true strength. Appearing unexpectedly from behind, I punched him hard. The hybrid experimental subject Double B7 of Transformer and superhuman races suddenly felt pain and let out a howl of agony. It seems the power of one punch is far from enough. He didn't even fall down. I should probably prepare to throw a few more punches. The hybrid experimental subject Double B7 was now completely enraged. His eyes blood red, roaring and howling. He turned and swiftly swung a palm strike. At this moment, I remembered the breath deception technique Teacher Stick taught me. This was the perfect time to test it. With a sudden flash, I ran to his back and delivered a heavy punch directly. Double B7 completely didn't expect my punch to be this powerful. The protective armor he was most proud of actually started crumbling. "Your body is indeed very hard, but so what? I just need to keep hitting until it shatters." Growls kept coming from his throat. Double B7 might have had some rationality left earlier, but now he was completely in an enraged beast state. Double B7 roared and went berserk, charging at me with all his might. His speed was so fast it left afterimages. Looking at the hybrid experimental subject in his enraged state, I'm actually a bit excited. Perfect timing to let me experience your strongest attack. Concentrate perception, focus attention on a single individual, relying only on that individual's limb movements and eyes. Predict the next moves and trajectory. Double B7 swung his most powerful claw strike. With his full effort, this punch even stirred up howling wind. I had already predicted his punching speed and direction. When he got close, I dodged swiftly and punched directly, smashing his head and pressing him hard into the ground. Double B7 only managed to make 2 sounds before he stopped struggling. I let out a long sigh. Finally resolved, I suddenly felt drained of energy and collapsed sitting on the ground. At this moment, the 2 superhumans who had been monitoring from the side moved. One of them grabbed his handgun and loaded it. "That kid's exhausted." The other superhuman nodded. "Finish him off." He slowly drew the knife in his hand. After speaking, both superhumans walked over together. Looks like they still underestimated my strength. I looked up and said to them provocatively, "I was wondering what I'd do if you just ran away." As I finished speaking, I tilted my head, and Auntie Kim behind me had already aimed her gun at them. Bang! One superhuman was shot directly in the head and fell to the ground. This scared the other superhuman badly. He shouted angrily, "Are you crazy?" He picked up his gun and fired wildly. My super strong perception allowed me to dodge all the bullet attacks. Taking advantage of his unpreparedness, I quickly ran in front of him and punched him down to the ground. I forcefully grabbed the mask on his face. "Baladuhina," the superhuman muttered incomprehensible words, which made me freeze on the spot. my face full of confusion. "Get out of the way!" Suddenly a sharp shout came from behind. I quickly dodged, and with a bang, the superhuman was shot in the head. I was somewhat shaken, cold sweat appearing on my forehead. "Senior, my hand almost got hit too," Auntie Kim explained calmly. "That was Prometheus's self-destruct incantation. I believe in you." This sudden statement startled me. Does Auntie Kim trust my abilities that much? Believing I could dodge quickly? Perhaps my gaze was too intense. Auntie Kim turned back to look at me. "Not just that, this too." She glanced down at the hybrid experimental subject BB7 on the ground. "The battle is over. The side retreating is Prometheus. Let's leave too." I feel somewhat pleased. I got praised, although I'm not sure about the result of the mission. On this side, the team led by team leader Yoongbong Lee had already begun cleaning up the battlefield. As the defeated party, Lumberjack Luke Quick Axe Breen glared at Team Leader Lee. "I'll let you off this time, see you next time." Team Leader Jungbong Lee was provoked and smiled mockingly. "What are you bragging about when you're the one who ran away first?" A member of the Immortal Special Forces walked over and asked Team Leader Jungbong Lee who they were. The team leader glanced at him and explained, "They're Jong Kim and Adrian Cross from Security Team 3. They're my subordinates." The team leader thought of that kid and felt somewhat uneasy inside. No matter what, they saved the convoy. A red-haired superhuman saw Team Leader Lee and suddenly screamed, "You immortal!" Team Leader Lee felt speechless and replied leisurely, "You're still here?" After the battle ended, Team Leader Lee sneakily ran to the energy stones, turned his head to look around, no one's watching, right? And reached out to stuff them directly into his pocket. The team member looked at his bulging pocket somewhat speechlessly. "What's in your pocket?" Team leader Jungbong Lee whistled and casually brushed it off. "Nothing. Don't worry about it." The next day, everyone returned to the office for work. Director Dongkun Lee looked at us and joked cheerfully, "You actually chased a criminal to the other side of the white hole and even visited another dimension. Looks like that kid was really fast. You've worked hard. Go home early today. Start writing the report from tomorrow." Hearing this, Auntie Kim behind me quickly put on her coat and planned to leave. Director Dongkun Lee sang, "Already put on the coat," and ran off. I then also followed Auntie Kim and left work, making casual small talk on the way. I looked back. "Senior, you're going that way, so see you later." Auntie Kim hesitated and spoke. "Today." I looked at my senior with a confused expression. The air froze for a moment. I inexplicably said, "Today in foreign languages, today. I believe in you." Jong Kim quickly turned her head away after saying this. She walked away quickly. I stared at her back somewhat dazed. What does that mean? Jong Kim endured her physical discomfort and walked quickly back home. With a thud, she collapsed weakly on the ground, letting out a painful moan. Gasping heavily, looking at her trembling hands, she was terribly afraid inside. This is the drug side effect. Enduring it, she finally felt some relief and leaned weakly against the wall. But it's not as serious as I expected. I didn't use much of the drug anyway. Really, this is all thanks to that person. I believe in you. Why did I say such a thing? I even said it twice. Is it because I feel sorry for him? Because if he were an ordinary immortal, he would have been eaten by that transformer. Remembering when leaving, Adrian Cross broke the awkwardness by saying, "Today in foreign languages today." I couldn't help but laugh. He really wasn't an ordinary person. Should I treat him to a meal next time? The next day at work, Adrian Cross looked up at the office building and sighed in confusion. What would happen in the future? If we had successfully stolen the energy stone, the company would probably have kept it confidential. But not only did we fail to steal the energy stone, my senior and I were also discovered there. We had to keep what happened in the other world secret and find a suitable excuse to get by. When I got to the office, I submitted the report to the secretary. She pushed her thick, black-framed glasses and said there was no problem and I could go back. I suddenly froze for a moment. The secretary thought I had some issue with the result, flipped through a few pages of the report, and patiently explained that, although the supernatural ability group had raised objections to us, our actions were also reasonable. Several text messages suddenly flooded into my phone, all congratulating me. What was going on? At this moment, I returned to my workstation. Manager Dongkun Lee suddenly walked over with a smile. The supernatural ability group planned to redistribute some of the energy stones to us because without the support of you two, the main team's plan would have failed. In short, you did something worthy of praise, and the promotion was an additional reward. I looked up at him, listening in stunned confusion. Suddenly someone called out Adrian Cross, and both of us were startled and turned around to look. We saw a man in a black suit walking over. This person was Jusok Kim, the leader of the Researcher Protection Group under R&D headquarters. He was the team leader who commanded the main team at that time. He approached and suddenly said thank you, then handed over a waste pack containing a gun. I was shocked, my hands trembling as I took it. Manager Dongkun Lee remained calm, leisurely leaning back in his chair to watch the show. It was a bullet knife. I curiously asked why he was giving me this. Team leader Jusok Kim nodded and said with a smile, "Because of your merit." Manager Dongkun Lee joked with a grin, "That's at least 10 million. He's someone willing to spend money on weapons, so it should be even more expensive." I looked at the weapon in my hand, my eyes widening in shock. "It was worth that much?" Manager Dongkun Lee pointed at the computer, extremely excited. "The announcement is out. You and Jong-A are up for promotion." Team leader Jungbong Lee also joined in teasing, "Happy now, you fool." I looked at the team leader humbly. This time I was just lucky. I didn't do anything. It's all thanks to the team leader and my senior. At this moment, I had already silently complained in my mind several times. What am I even pretending for? This is so ridiculous. Team leader Yongbong Lee's sharp tongue mode activated again. "Do you think now is the time to just be happy? Use your brain." With my back to him, I whispered to manager Dongkun Lee, "He's jealous of me now, isn't isn't he? Manager Donggun Lee smiled and turned to leave. Just write your report. He really was good at making people uncomfortable. I'd just write the report. My fingers hammered away at the keyboard, only stating the facts. Suddenly my thoughts stopped. Looking back, being able to successfully resist the surprise attack was due to chance. If my senior and I had fought according to the original plan, even if we hadn't been completely wiped out, the situation wouldn't have been reversed. Do you think now is the time to just be happy? Thinking of what team leader Youngbong Lee said, I suddenly understood. So that's what he meant. Looking at the overall situation, there was only one reason things had evolved to this point. There was a mole. A week later, the staff were having a gathering at a charcoal grilled pork belly restaurant. Team leader Jungbong Lee angrily put down his glass. Working ourselves to death only fattens someone else's wallet. Manager Donggun Lee tried to reason with him from the side. If we stick our necks out, we're the only ones who'll suffer. Team leader Youngbong Lee angrily picked up his glass and said, "Give me another drink." I worried he'd drink too much and start cursing at people, so I quickly stopped him. "Don't drink anymore," Team leader Youngbong Lee sarcastically retorted. "You got promoted and you're still this stingy?" Donggun Lee on the side understood perfectly and raised his hand to signal. "4 more servings of raw pork belly for us?" I broke out in a cold sweat. If I had to host another promotion dinner, I'd be bankrupt. "We're out of soju. Give us 4 bottles of soju." Listening to these shameless people frantically ordering more food, I covered my face and almost burst into tears. Team leader Jungbong Lee was already drunk by now and started spouting off. "This damn company, if there's a mole, just catch them," I chimed in. "How about telling the higher-ups about this situation?" Team leader Jungbong Lee suddenly showed exaggerated surprise. "You're a genius. I didn't even think of that method. I even wrote a long report and submitted it." As he spoke, he came over and put his arm around my shoulder, continuing, "If the mole stays in our company, they can still be helpful, so even though everyone knows, they turn a blind eye." After finishing the grilled meat, the sky outside was already pitch black. Just as I walked out of the restaurant, I heard team leader Jungbong Lee roaring inside. "What do you mean we're not going to the next place?" I laughed listening to this. His annual salary was clearly higher than mine, yet who knew where all that money went? Recent attack groups were different from before. They would establish savings companies in similar places. What they stored wasn't their own money, but illegal funds from high-level officials. Recalling the conversation between the team leader and the manager, I couldn't help but feel a chill down my spine. It seemed the higher-ups were all involved. I couldn't figure it out. I needed to ask my dad for help. After a series of notification tones, the phone was finally answered. An irritable male voice came through. "What happened?" "Nothing. I just wanted to ask how you're doing. I see." Dad laughed in disappointment. Mom's voice also came through at this moment. "Is it that unfilial son?" Hearing this, I suddenly felt a bit guilty. "I'm sorry. I'll call more often. Just tell us what it is." Only then did I voice my confusion. "Did you get into a conflict with some rich second-generation heir? Then please temporarily remove yourself from the family registry." I laughed awkwardly. How badly did they want to kick me out? Dad gave a straightforward solution. Simply put, you can't hit the head, right? Then just kick the shins. Kick the shins. This suddenly gave me an idea. I repeated it again. Can't hit the head, so kick the shins. I seemed to understand something. "Dad, I'll call you later." I hurriedly hung up the phone. Right after, I called team leader Jungbong Lee. Jungbong Lee impatiently answered the phone. "What is it? Where are you? You brat. Weren't you not coming?" "I'm at the bar across from that restaurant just now," I hastily stated. "If I come, you're treating." "Team leader, why would that guy become a mole?" Team leader Jungbong Lee paused mid-drink, not expecting me to ask this. I urgently started running at a brisk pace, several hypotheses suddenly forming in my mind, outputting continuously. Hypothesis 1, there's a mole. That mole must be a high-level official that even Huelin's internal inspection team doesn't dare provoke. Hypothesis 2, the mole doesn't belong to Prometheus. If they were a spy working for Prometheus, then even if they were a high-ranking public official, the authorities wouldn't just sit by and watch. Therefore, we can conclude Hypothesis 3, the mole is only assisting Prometheus but not working for Prometheus. Hypothesis 4, the mole's goal is money. You just said some high-level officials want to hide their money, and attack groups like Prometheus hide that money for the high-level personnel. In return, they can also operate companies openly. I poured out all my thoughts in one go. Team leader Youngbong Lee listened to the urgent voice on the other end, frowned, stood up and looked around. "Where are you?" At this moment, I had already rushed to the door, still breathing heavily. With a bang, I pushed the door open, startling both Jungbong Lee and Donggun Lee inside. I walked in with hurried steps, saying excitedly, "Since we can't hit the head, let's kick the shins. How about we go rob that guy's warehouse?" I said all my thoughts with a serious expression. Team leader Jungbong Lee didn't respond to me, but instead picked up his glass and drank gulp after gulp. At this moment, manager Donggun Lee, who was sitting to the side, finally turned around and teased with narrowed eyes. The person who said he was going home suddenly shows up here. At this time, team leader Jungbong Lee had finished drinking and put down his glass. He slowly said, "Gather in the conference room first thing when we get to work tomorrow." After saying this, he walked to the door with a mischievous smile. Manager Donggun Lee and I looked completely bewildered, not understanding what this meant. Suddenly, with a whoosh, the team leader ran straight out, gleefully shouting at me, "Run!" The slightly tipsy manager was left behind, screaming in despair, "You bastard, team leader! Aren't you going to pay the bill? The next day, staff voices came one after another from Asset Savings Bank's Hapjeong branch. Thank you for your patronage. At this moment, the staff at the counter window was preparing to serve the next customer when they were startled by a commotion at the entrance. A masked, suspicious-looking man carrying a duffel bag walked in. He wore a bulletproof vest and hunched his back. His strange behavior caught the attention of the bald security guard. What's going on? When did this guy come in? The bald security guard frowned and shouted angrily, "What do you think you're doing?" The man didn't speak and directly pulled out the gun from his waist. He fired 2 shots at the bald security guard's legs. The guard cried out in pain. The scene became chaotic in an instant, and everyone screamed in fright and fled. At this moment, a shapeshifter suddenly rushed out from behind. He leaped up and was about to swing down with his palm. "Kid, don't you see where you are?" The man's extremely strong perception allowed him to detect him immediately. Having come to rob a bank, how could he be defeated so easily? With a stylish turn, he delivered an elbow strike at extreme speed. The shapeshifter's face was deformed by the impact, his eyes rolling back in pain. With a thud, he fell heavily to the ground, raising dust. Then the man pulled out the weapon he had prepared in his bag and strode to the counter. With a click, he cleanly loaded the gun and aimed it at the staff inside the counter. The man held up the gun and threatened him not to press the button. These words made the staff member's hand movements pause. Seeing him stop, the man withdrew his gun and said, "Because I'll press it for you." After saying this, he fired several shots at the ceiling, scaring everyone in the bank into screaming, with their hands over their heads. Seeing that the intimidation was effective, the man stopped and said, "Starting now. Everyone put your heads between your knees. Don't do anything except breathe. Whoever dares to scream, shout, or whisper, then you'll have an extra hole in your head. All of you just need to pray this is over quickly. Don't do anything and don't think about anything else." A few hours earlier, inside the company, manager Donggun Lee was holding a meeting to explain to everyone, Asset Savings is a secondary financial company. It's both a loan company and involved in lending, as well as a bank. It's also a financial enterprise established openly by the attack group Prometheus, including the main branch. There are 3 in City B. After hearing the analysis, I seriously said, "Let's rob this place." Although the conventional method is to investigate the source of the money and track the circulating funds, then have the financial committee step in to seize it. After all, there's no guarantee we can find out for sure, and we don't have time. In that case, let's use unconventional means. If we can't directly hit the mole's head, then let's attack the finances, which are equivalent to the Shin's. Team leader Jongbong Lee and Jong Kim were shocked after hearing this. After being dazed for a moment, they started discussing loudly. I awkwardly lowered my eyes. "What's with those expressions? Do I look that stupid?" Manager Dongkun Lee immediately teased, "Think about your usual state." I actually seriously thought about it. At this moment, team leader Jongbong Lee looked at me with a serious expression. "Why do you want to do this? What does catching the mole mean to you? Why go to this extent?" I was slightly stunned. I spoke frankly. Watching the team leader curse every day, I understood. Our team leader must have been screwed over pretty badly, right? Team leader Jongbong Lee's face grew darker and darker at this moment. He wanted nothing more than to teach this brat a lesson. After talking about the team leader, I looked at the smiling manager Donghun Lee and continued. In the plan to obtain the energy stone, we needed to know the enemy's invasion situation in advance. The manager was also screwed over. Donghun Lee nodded in agreement. I'm pretty loyal, so I thought about it. What should we do when our team members have been screwed over this badly? Team leader Jongbong Lee, for once, stopped cursing and frowned in thought for a moment. Donghoon, draft the operation plan. Manager Donghun Lee also became serious. As for how to get approval, I'll take care of it. After speaking, team leader Jongbong Lee pushed away his chair and stood up. Jong A, go find people in this line of work and gather some information. Then pick a few people with good acting skills. Seeing that everyone else had been assigned tasks, I immediately stood up and asked, what do I do? Team leader Jongbong Lee just glanced at me. Then he pointed at me gleefully and teased, look at your face. You're definitely the main character. I looked shocked. Why did it feel like I'd been set up by the team leader? After that, I transformed into a bank robber with only 2 eyes showing. The robber's image flickered on the surveillance footage. Have you found this guy? We're currently checking all the surrounding surveillance cameras and dash cams, but there are still no leads. In just 5 minutes, he blew up the vault and escaped using the camera blind spots. Right now, we can only confirm he's a special race. What the hell does this guy do? The captain commanding the main team looked worriedly at the charred vault. A team member said, Captain, there's an emergency. Asset Savings Suyu Station also. The captain was shocked and couldn't believe it. A few hours ago, Asset Savings Hapjeong Station's vault erupted in raging flames. Adrian Cross walked out of the vault slowly with an arrogant swagger. I couldn't help but recall the team leader's wicked smile in my mind. The Asset Savings staff looked at the raging fire in the vault with a terrified expression, their whole body breaking out in cold sweat. After leaving the store, I ran quickly through the streets. Pedestrians on the road saw my outfit and screamed loudly in terror. I quickly rushed into a secluded corner with no one around and swiftly changed out of my clothes. When I came out again with the bag over my shoulder, I had changed into a different appearance. I pressed down my hat and walked briskly outside. At this moment, across the street, a girl on a motorcycle suddenly braked. I was startled and looked up. Sister Kim opened her helmet visor and shouted loudly, "Get on!" Before this plan was implemented, team leader Jongbong Lee went to the dispatch director to submit the plan, but was warned by the dispatch director, don't disrupt the company's peace. If I approve this kind of plan, I'll definitely be fired. Team leader Jongbong Lee spoke with a slightly threatening tone. Suppose something goes wrong this time. Everyone, including me, might die. there are more than just 1 or 2 people who need to recuperate for months because of this incident, right? The targets are Asset Savings, Hapjeong, and Suyu stations. Of course, we'll avoid letting ordinary people get injured. The Immortal Special Forces and the Supernatural Ability Group were attacked. If we don't retaliate, other guys will look down on us. Appropriate retaliation is necessary. Listening to Jungbong Lee's words, the dispatch director picked up the plan in his hands and became increasingly alarmed as he flipped through it, even breaking out in cold sweat. In the end, he could only helplessly say, "Do as you see fit. I don't know anything." Within a few hours after the incident, this matter quickly made it to the trending news list, with click rates continuously rising. The dispatch director looked at the trending list in front of him, furious beyond measure, and spoke through gritted teeth. Those crazy bastards. They caused trouble after all. On the other side, Adrian Cross burped and thanked Jungbong Lee with a grin. "Thanks for the treat, team leader." The 4 of them had just come out of the barbecue restaurant when team leader Jungbong Lee started cursing unhappily. I didn't pay any more attention to the team leader and noticed that Sister Kim's face was extremely red. "Senior, did you drink too much?" Jong-a Kim muttered quietly. "Didn't we teach those guys a lesson?" "I'm in a good mood." I immediately laughed. "I thought you wanted to max out the team leader's card like I did." The team leader suddenly spoke up. "There's still one thing we can't slack off on, especially you, rookie." I stared blankly at the team leader. I'd forgotten the team leader was a purebred immortal. He definitely heard our whispered conversation just now. No wonder his face was so dark. "See you tomorrow." The team leader left after saying this. Manager Dong-kun Lee was excited. He nudged me with his elbow and teased, "Congratulations on going from fool to rookie." I just felt very irritated. "Even if you congratulate me, I don't feel grateful." I laughed helplessly. "But I guess I'm now a member of External Security Team 3. Early the next morning, it was time for work again. I walked into the elevator in quite a good mood and happened to run into Xiaofeng. Xiaofeng immediately saw something was off with me and teased, "What's the good news?" Seeing I wasn't answering honestly, he directly called me out. The office buzzed with unusually noisy voices. Several company colleagues gathered at the elevator entrance, staring at the office inside. The company's purple-haired lady was seen with 2 tall and burly men confronting team leader Jungbong Lee and 2 others. The purple-haired lady spoke expressionlessly. "Do you have anything else to say?" Manager Donggun Lee angrily stood up and protested loudly. "This is impossible!" Seeing the situation didn't look good, I walked forward and asked what was happening. The purple-haired lady turned around. "We're investigating an internal embezzlement case." Before I could speak again, team leader Jungbong Lee laughed sarcastically. "Is the newbie also related to this? What could a newbie who's only been here 6 months know?" After hearing this, the purple-haired lady's face instantly turned gloomy. "Then let's go upstairs and talk." As soon as she finished speaking, several people in the office stood up and walked out. When team leader Jungbong Lee passed by me, he said something very cryptic. "Do your homework, rookie." I was stunned. After everyone in the office had left, I came to my senses. There were too many questions. I didn't understand. It seemed I needed to find someone in the know to ask. I arranged to meet the blonde guy on the company rooftop. "What happens if embezzlement is discovered? If you're lucky, you'll receive a suspension. If you're unlucky, well, you're a criminal. What else?" Hearing this, I sighed. Things seemed more serious than they appeared on the surface. The day after causing trouble to catch the mole, the team leader and team members were all conveniently taken away. How could it be such a coincidence? I continued pressing. "What will happen to me?" The blonde guy threw away the drink bottle in his hand and kindly advised, "This is the last thing the team leader did for you. Just pretend you don't know anything. Don't do anything. Keep your mouth shut." After saying this, he turned and left. My phone vibrated at this moment. I opened it to see a text message from the dispatch director. Damn it, he pulled out at a time like this. What he did to catch the mole ended up putting our team in a deadlock. What were we supposed to do now? Suddenly, the image of the team leader leaving flashed through my mind. Right, the assignment. Besides those 2 branches, there was still the main asset savings headquarters. The scene shifted. At that moment, team leader Jungbong Lee was being interrogated. "Do you admit that your crimes aren't just 1 or 2 incidents? If even half of what's written here is true, you're looking at least 10 years. Team leader Jungbong Lee's face darkened. "I really don't understand what you're talking about." The interrogator, seeing that neither the carrot nor the stick worked on him, slammed the table in frustration. "Stop beating around the bush. If you just admit to some of the charges, the rest can be negotiated." "Who reported me?" "What?" The interrogator froze. Team leader Jungbong Lee picked up the documents and asked with a furrowed brow, "Who ordered this inspection to begin? Even things the boss doesn't know about are written down here, and quite a few are based only on indirect evidence, right? You know, if you keep this attitude up, this matter won't end well." Jungbong Lee let out a mocking laugh and put down the documents. "You never intended for this to end well from the start, did you? You will attend an internal trial. Are you sure you want to maintain this attitude?" These words made Jungbong Lee freeze and immediately become serious. "When?" "In 2 days." Jungbong Lee lowered his head and couldn't help but think. 2 days later, there was no time. That meant there was only 1 trump card left. Meanwhile, thinking of the team leader's last words gave me a new idea. I went alone to find boss Myeongjin Nam of Hualan Company. The boss had his back turned, and only his voice could be heard. Even though I'm relatively approachable, I'm still a boss. "How could you come to talk to me without saying a word? That's way too reckless." Employee Adrian Crossy. Being called out by name, I nervously straightened my body, my eyes determined. You've got your eye on me, don't you? Boss Myung Nam looked at me with confusion, curious about how I could have such a bold idea. With determined eyes, I stated, although I don't know your intentions, you must have a reason for keeping an eye on me, right? I want to prove that reason, so please trust me and approve one thing. Boss Myung Nam grinned with a mocking smile, a glint of cunning flashing in his eyes. He casually flipped through a few documents before continuing. In 2 days, all members of External Security Team 3 except you will attend an internal trial. In other words, you only have about 40 hours left. You actually want to rob a bank alone in these 40 hours and bring the mole before me? I nervously broke out in cold sweat. No, I didn't say that. You need to accomplish at least this much before I'll stamp an unofficial operation plan. But either way, I still need backup. No backup. Don't you want to prove why I've got my eye on you? I kept an eye on you because I thought you could bring me what I want. Listen carefully. What I want is that mole. All right, I understand. I'll bring you the mole. At that moment, I felt my confidence surge, and I agreed just as readily. Having said that, I turned around and left gracefully. After Adrian Crossy left, the secretary said teasingly, "Boss, you're too cruel." Myung Nam asked in confusion, "What do you mean? Don't you know full well he can't do it?" Myung Nam leaned back in his chair with a meaningful smile. "That's not a good habit." The secretary was puzzled. "What habit?" "I mean your habit of underestimating people," the secretary began to explain. Although he received an extraordinary rating in his ability evaluation, and his combat execution ability has been rated A so far, it's still difficult for him to complete this alone, because he hasn't crossed that barrier yet. Myung Nam glanced sideways and asked back, "Why do you think I chose him in the first place?" The secretary couldn't help but gossip curiously, "Could he be your illegitimate son? I really hope you're joking, but you're always so serious." With that, Boss Myung Nam turned around and said with a teasing smile, "He's very good at getting close to people. Just now, even I almost gave him backup. Of course, from my position, I absolutely cannot give him support." The secretary once again spoke bluntly, "You're lying. Would getting close and building relationships make any difference?" After saying this, Boss Myung Nam's smile faded, and he said with a serious expression, "Of course it would." Meanwhile, after leaving Boss Myung Nam's office, Adrian Crossy kept sending text messages looking for help. "Can someone please reply?" Looking at the phone with no response, I felt extremely anxious. Suddenly, there was a creaking sound behind me, and I curiously looked back. Seeing that it was the blonde young lady who came, I hurriedly said, "I almost went directly to your desk to find you." The blonde lady had a cold face and looked quite impatient. "I'm very busy. Get to the point. You know about the asset savings branch being attacked, right?" "I did that," the blonde lady coldly rebuked. "Psycho." I cut straight to the chase and explained my purpose. "And this is the unofficial operation plan personally approved by the boss. The target is the Jiangnan headquarters of asset savings." As I spoke, I handed her a plan. With complete seriousness, I said, "Let's rob it together." The blonde lady cursed angrily. "Psycho, this is a rare opportunity. You can repay a favor and leave a good impression on the boss." Hearing me say this, the blonde lady picked up the plan and studied it seriously. "Who's in command?" I confidently pointed at myself. "What about other team members?" I pointed at the person across from me. "You." The blonde lady felt like she'd been deceived and turned to leave. I quickly grabbed her arm and hurriedly said, "Wait, there's more. Who else?" "The person who trained me to be a perfect robber when we hit the first 2 branches." At that moment, this big brother was already waiting in the park, leisurely sitting with his legs crossed, drinking tea. I came over to meet with him. I proactively and politely greeted him. "We meet again." Big brother then slowly spoke. "Didn't you say there were only 2 branches? Why are you here again?" I honestly answered, "Because I'm still very uneasy. I only feel safe having Big Brother Jung-go Kim by my side, a top-tier expert who's elevated vault heists to an art form." Big Brother Jung-go Kim snorted disdainfully. "But when I said that, you clearly had a stop your bullshit expression on your face." I laughed awkwardly, sat down, and patted Big Brother's shoulder. "Oh, come on, I never thought that. Don't be like this. Accompany me for one more job. What happens to me if I refuse?" I looked shocked and stammered, "Root out the problem completely." Big Brother Jung-go Kim said unhappily, "Damn it, this is exactly why I don't want to work with government personnel." Seeing Big Brother Jung-go Kim's indignant expression, I consoled him. "I'm joking. Anyway, the situation is urgent now. Please decide quickly." Big Brother Jung-go Kim frowned with a reluctant look. "Fine. It's not a big deal. Worthy of being Brother Jung-gu." The next day at the headquarters of Asset Savings Bank Company, through the telescope, security personnel could be clearly seen. After the first 2 branches were robbed, the main store had increased its private security forces. Although they were called private security, they were actually Prometheus combat personnel. Big Brother Jung-go Kim looked at the Asset Savings building across the way and explained in detail about their usual hiding spots. To prevent unnecessary disturbances, they'd always concealed themselves in the shadows. But now they're brazenly guarding the entrance of the main store, and all security systems have been raised to maximum alert. Even when I was working there, I couldn't break through this place. Even with 5 people like me, it would be very difficult to break through, the blonde lady asked with confusion. "That's how it looks currently, right?" Big Brother Jung-go Kim smiled mysteriously. "That's right. What we need now is war and melting. Since ordinary methods won't work, we need to completely reverse the situation. If precision equipment and people are gathered together, then we need to start by breaking all precision things. That's why we need war and melting. While taking advantage of the chaos created by war, we'll melt the back wall of the main store's vault and get in from there. This will be helped by an anonymous special ability individual. The blonde lady became interested when she heard this and asked curiously, "Where is this anonymous special ability individual?" He said he'd provide help at the necessary moment and place, then leave. The blonde lady found it somewhat hard to believe. "You actually got him to come?" I spoke very seriously. The beginning of this matter was because of the energy storage stones, so the country, a branch of the superpower organization, should also be very angry. Since there's an opportunity to strike back at Prometheus while hiding their identity, this isn't a bad thing for them. The blonde lady wanted to advise further, even if you successfully got a superpower user, this plan is still too reckless. I still firmly believe my plan was fine and explained, sometimes simple methods are actually more effective. This is no different from a moth to a flame. I handed the telescope to the blonde lady and explained again, "That's exactly why I called you. I heard you're very good at reading situations, so I'm counting on you for battlefield support." "You investigated me? Do I look that free?" Of course, Yaohan told me. Jin Yaohan can't keep his mouth shut. Big brother Junggo Kim walked alone to the suitcase behind him, squatted down, and rummaged through it over and over. The next moment, he pulled out 3 masks and handed them over. I asked curiously, "What are those?" Big brother Junggo Kim patiently explained, "These are made from Whitehole's new material. They're very light and won't fall off easily when worn on the face." The blonde lady glanced at them and nodded affirmatively. "They're really well made." I was indeed a bit surprised. "Who picked this style?" Big brother Junggo Kim was already somewhat displeased. "I did. Do you have a problem with that?" "No." I obediently put the mask on my face and said affirmatively, "Not bad." Then I'm off. The next moment, I had already appeared near the security guards with several guns on my back. As a dual bloodline possessor of both Transformer and Immortal lineages, the first thing I had to do was hide my presence and penetrate as deeply as possible before being discovered. A security guard suddenly sensed something unusual and just made a sound. Bang! The security guard beside him got a headshot. The other security guard nervously held his gun, unable to help but exclaim in his heart, "So fast." I suddenly flashed into view and leaped up, giving the security guard a hard blow with my knee, sending him flying directly. A painful scream rang out. Everything happened in just an instant. That security guard had already fallen to the ground. This terrified the 2 other security guards behind them. "Little punks, the king of beasts has arrived." I appeared brazenly in the security guard's line of sight, extremely arrogant. And just a few hours earlier, our 3-person team was still intensively planning the operation route. Asset savings was controlled by a private security team, while the surrounding area was controlled by P-Watt. Looks like we don't need to worry about ordinary people getting involved. Having said that, the blonde lady took out a pen and removed the cap. Kneeling on the ground, she marked out the key areas on the blueprint one by one. "I'll divide the controlled area into 16 sections. You need to remember the name and location of each area. I'll observe the overall situation this way and give you instructions." I nodded. Having discussed the strategy, the blonde lady stood up with the mask and was about to leave. "Let's begin then." "Wait," I suddenly spoke to stop her. "Here. Take this cocktail potion." Having said that, I tossed her a medicine jar. I don't need to explain the effects, do I? The blonde lady just glanced at it and drank it down in one gulp without any fear that I might have given her poison. After drinking, she threw it casually to the ground. Cocktail potion SC8, commonly known as popcorn. It could slightly boost physical ability values and weakly enhance agility, while also granting the user neurotic level alertness. The blonde lady's potion had already taken effect, and her eyes were glowing red. Standing at the vantage point on the rooftop, she raised the telescope and watched Asset Savings Bank from a distance. She saw that Adrian Crossy was currently exchanging fire with the other side, moving incredibly fast. She couldn't help but think, Adrian Crossy once defeated the blonde young master and broke all test records. His combat execution ability and situational awareness are both excellent. I can't help but wonder, is he really just one person? Capturing the level 3 wanted criminal Dupol N.A., codenamed Rhino, although I don't want to admit it. He really is exceptionally capable. The blonde lady pulled back her thoughts and began seriously commanding the operation. Zone 3, mobile combat time 256 seconds. Zone 5, combat time 28 seconds. Zone 7, combat time 47 seconds. Adrian Crossy listened to the blonde lady's commands and took out security personnel one after another, quickly giving them headshots and gradually advancing inward. At this moment, Adrian Crossy was firing with one hand while grabbing a security guard for close combat with the other. The blonde lady quickly commanded based on the on-site situation, turn left afterward and move to Zone 6. Our goal is to create chaos so they don't notice the heat behind the vault. A transformer at position 10 is approaching. Please note that 4 people are approaching in Zone 3, so circle around to Zone 2, turn right, and then engage to handle the chaotic battle. The blonde lady was issuing commands, observing the situation, and predicting what would come next. Hide behind the left pillar. Hearing the blonde lady's prompt, Adrian Crossy suddenly froze for an instant. The next moment, his body reacted naturally and quickly dodged behind the left pillar. The sniper in the distance had already opened fire. Bang! He threw out a smoke grenade. In an instant, everywhere was shrouded in hazy fog, and the sniper was immediately startled. As the thick smoke gradually dispersed, a dagger came flying rapidly through the air. The speed was so fast that there was no way to dodge. It pierced straight into the center of his forehead, a fatal blow finally cleared the obstacles. Now this mad tiger can fight to his heart's content. Between several securities buildings, gunfire rang out incessantly. Catch him! The three-person security team spotted my figure and began firing wildly, sparks flying from their gun barrels. As a dual bloodline possessor of both Transformer and Immortal lineages, I naturally dodged at the first moment, swooshing into another alley. The target has entered the alley ahead. Let's go in too. The security squad quickly followed behind. The lead security personnel quietly approached, hearing only his own footsteps in his ears. Reaching the end, he found no one there. Unable to confirm the target's position. Damn it, he's hiding his presence. He's concealed himself. As a dual bloodline possessor of both Transformer and Immortal lineages, I was now using my superhuman physical strength to climb the high wall on the side, hiding my presence and waiting for the right moment to strike. The lead security personnel was still transmitting information in a low voice. He could pop out from any corner, everyone. Before he finished speaking, a security guard behind him got a headshot and fell to the ground. The leader was startled and hadn't reacted yet. One shot wasn't enough, I kept firing. The lead security personnel also got fired up. Adrian Crossi seized the moment and leaped down. Seeing him so arrogant, the security guard furiously revealed his Transformer true form. Adrian Crossi was also startled. The Transformer quickly threw a punch. The sudden impact force only made me step back a few paces. The Transformer's eyes widened in shock. How could an Immortal block that? As a dual bloodline possessor of both Transformer and Immortal lineages, I used absolute speed to grab his wrist. I'm truly moved to tears. You were so thoughtful to take off your helmet. I struck quickly and landed a solid punch to his head. At the same instant, my superhuman perception sensed another security guard behind me. I grabbed his body and used it to shield myself from bullets. A cold gleam flashed in my eyes. I quickly hurled the Transformer in my hand, directly knocking him to the ground. Watch your head! The bullet flew right past my ear. Fortunately, the blonde lady reminded me in time, and I dodged by turning sideways just in time. My heart skipped a beat. In an instant, another team of security guards arrived, pointing their guns at me and shouting loudly, "Stop! What kind of lunatic are you? Move one more time and I'll blow your head off. Is that uniform Puat?" I glanced and then said, "Pause for a moment." The security guard angrily rebuked, "Shut up, you punk." Click. The gun was already loaded and aimed at me. A continuous burst of fire. I used my superhuman perception to dodge and, seizing the moment, sprinted away. Two people at the right turn ahead. The blonde lady reminded me again. Having advance warning, I pulled out the backup gun from my back. As the opponent attacked with an axe, I bent down and dodged at lightning speed. I raised my gun, aimed at him, and bang, took him out cleanly. Another security guard hiding behind the wall corner heard the sound and was greatly shocked. Before he could even approach, he saw his colleague already lying on the ground covered in blood. At the same time, I flew out from the side and cleanly gave this security guard a shot as well. Bang! The bullet exploded. They were both dead. They fell straight into a pool of blood. Walking directly to the surface parking lot next to the asset savings building, I rapidly left following the command route. The security team members who arrived later saw the battle situation and complained angrily to each other. "What the hell is that kid? You did use telekinesis on him, right? We've been using it since the beginning. But he broke free with sheer strength. Isn't he an immortal? How is he so strong?" Watching the rapidly fleeing figure, the security guard shouted, "Don't move, or both you and the car will be finished." While speaking, he was already shouldering a large gun as a threat. At this time, another group of people arrived. "Put your weapons away. What are you doing on someone else's turf? Don't get involved. We're the police, bastards. You're just private security. How dare you talk like that? The person who attacked us should naturally be caught by us." Taking advantage of the gap while they were still arguing, Adrian Crossi dug his hands into the car body. "What the hell kind of madness? Don't talk to me, it's creepy." The strange sounds attracted both parties who were arguing, and when they turned their heads simultaneously, they were all frightened. They saw me lifting a police car many times heavier than myself, letting out a cold snort as I was about to throw the car at them. The security team leader was extremely shocked at this sight, broke out in cold sweat, and cursed, "That lunatic." Another man was similarly shocked into a cold sweat and hurriedly shouted, "Fire!" Looking at the two groups so tense across from me, I already had a plan in mind. I quickly put the car down to block the bullets in front of me. The team member carrying the shells saw the situation and let out a disdainful tisk, raising his weapon to aim at the target. The leader of the other group heard the sound and turned his head to look. He was greatly shocked. "Wait, that's a grenade launcher." Click! He had already pulled the trigger. Without a moment's hesitation, bang, it was fired. The shell cut through the air like an arrow, shooting rapidly toward the target. The sound of the bomb exploding was deafening. The ceiling inside the building shook precariously, with debris clattering down. Meanwhile, the others also began the combat plan. Big brother Jung Go Kim felt the wall shaking behind him and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. He really is wreaking havoc everywhere. Flashes of light appeared before his eyes. A superpower user was doing his best to melt the wall. Thanks to him, this place shouldn't be discovered. The superpower user paused in his movements, looking at the situation before him with confusion. Big brother Jungo Kim inquired, "What's wrong?" "There's a second wall." Big brother Jungo Kim also took a look and suggested, "That should be the vault's back wall. Melt it too." Big brother Jungo Kim was also vaguely nervous and uneasy at this moment, even breaking out in cold sweat. "Very good. Everything's going smoothly so far. I wonder how things are going on the other side now." Can that guy really keep to the agreed time? On this side, shortly after the grenade exploded, the smoke cleared, revealing a huge hole blown in the wall. Adrian Crossy was also severely injured from the massive impact of the explosion and fell to the ground, trembling as he tried to get up. It hurts so much. While I'm suffering here, the team leader is probably having a grand time using the investigation as an excuse. When I get back, I'll make him pay double. I'll make him buy me beef as a reward. This time, I'll definitely max out his card. I couldn't help but cry out in pain. My severed arm was still gushing blood. The security team members were greatly shocked to see he still wasn't dead. Lunatic, you just awakened, didn't you? You really think immortals have undying bodies? Looking at this lunatic before them, they felt a wave of fear. He's a combat-savvy lunatic. More than half of our armed forces can no longer continue fighting. Also, using the car to block fire and trigger an explosion was to blow a hole in this wall, wasn't it? I shakily stood up, muttering, "The mountain spirit was angered and sent me here to punish you." The two were instantly speechless. The man with equipment couldn't help but curse. The private security guard kept a straight face and stared intently at the person before him, thinking inwardly, although he's a lunatic, he's quick-witted. His phone suddenly rang, interrupting his thoughts. He picked it up and looked. Internal information was pushed through. Tiger's accomplice discovered. He looked at it and felt pleased. However, we also have quick-witted lunatics on our side, and there are two of them. A person walked out from the destroyed wall. He wore a trendy, unconventional outfit, pointed leather shoes, red pants, and a head of green hair that was exceptionally eye-catching. On the blonde lady's side, halfway through commanding the operation, she suddenly sensed something unusual. A powerful transformer suddenly appeared behind her. Wham! He swung a punch. The blonde lady bent down and dodged. Fortunately, she had drunk the potion, greatly enhancing her agility and alertness, but she still had some questions in her mind. Where exactly did he come from? The Transformer powerhouse became even more excited seeing that she could dodge, his eyes gleaming with light. He threw another punch. Wham! This punch was both fast and heavy. The blonde lady could no longer dodge and was sent flying by the punch. The massive impact caused her to slide far backward when she fell to the ground. The Tiger Mask's movements are as if he has eyes in the sky. In other words, his accomplice is in a location outside the attack range, where they can overlook this entire area. And there should be more than one building around. As long as you know these points, it's easy to find your location, the Transformer powerhouse explained to himself. The blonde lady struggled to support herself. The Transformer powerhouse saw her miserable state and laughed even more proudly, saying provocatively, "Right?" The blonde lady barely managed to support her body and turned her head to look. She understood in her heart. A transformer. I was wondering why I didn't sense his approach. Turns out he was outside the range I could sense and jumped over in one go with his leg strength. The Transformer powerhouse looked at her miserable appearance and laughed wildly and proudly. "Yellow hair. You're from the Immortal Special Forces. You'll be sold for a very high price." Hearing this, the blonde lady was greatly alarmed and couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. At the same time, Adrian Crossy was stabbed hard by the green-haired man. He let out a painful grunt. The unconventional green-haired man looked at his painful expression and laughed very proudly. "I want to know what your face looks like under the mask." Because Adrian Crossy had been severely injured, his perception was slightly dulled, but at this moment, he also sensed something was wrong in his heart. I didn't sense his approach. He hid his presence. He's an immortal. The two people on this side were watching the show from the sidelines. The security team captain asked curiously, "Hey, who is that? What exactly does that terrifying kid do?" The private security team captain laughed sinisterly. "The only two Prometheus elites in the security team. Since they've already taken action, this matter should be over." A few days before the incident, Adrian Cross approached the company's Secretary General and asked politely, "Could I get a copy of the report?" The Secretary General frowned but nodded in agreement. As the printer started working away, Adrian Cross seized the opportunity to get friendly. "You heard everything, right? Does the boss know all about it? Does he know exactly who's colluding with the attack organization but still lets it slide? Can you tell me who that person is?" Seeing the Secretary General just organizing files and completely ignoring me, I thought for a moment and complained. "Boss Nan is such a mysterious type, isn't he? I'm going to spread the word everywhere about his scheming nature." I looked back at the busy Secretary General and asked enthusiastically, "Can I call you brother?" The Secretary General refused decisively. "No." I smiled ingratiatingly and moved closer, continuing, "After the plan is executed, could you help me out once?" Although the boss refused me, "It's different for you. This is all to help the boss. If the boss is well, naturally you'll be well too, right? If you can't help directly, then please help from the shadows. I absolutely won't let you be discovered." Although the Secretary General didn't speak, his expression darkened. He turned and walked a few steps, his mind replaying thoughts of that person just now. Adrian Cross's personality was rare even among young people just entering society. If he encountered this situation again, he'd probably ask if he could call someone brother. Such an innocent, straightforward personality. What a naive kid. But his words had no logical flaws. Would getting friendly and building rapport really make a difference? A slight smile unconsciously tugged at the corner of his mouth. He made up his mind and called Boss Myung-jin Nam. "Hello, boss. I'd like to get permission for something." Time returned once again to a few days later, where the blonde lady and the Transformer warrior were still locked in confrontation. Looking at this difficult Transformer warrior before me, I was filled with regret. I should have left 5 minutes ago, yet here I was, reduced to hanging by a thread just to help Adrian Cross. Although I needed to repay my debt, this wasn't worth it. The Transformer warrior's eyes gleamed with excitement as he extended his claws, ready to strike. Suddenly, the Transformer warrior found his movements frozen, unable to move, and he was furious. The Secretary General had appeared on the rooftop at some point, walking leisurely with one hand in his pocket. His silent appearance shocked both of them greatly. The blonde lady's first thought was, could he be concealing his presence? At this moment, the Transformer warrior could move again. His first action was to throw a vicious punch at the Secretary General, but the Secretary General's speed was astonishingly fast. He dodged instantly and pulled out his secret weapon, flinging it directly at the warrior's arm. Just like that, the Transformer warrior's arm was severed. Witnessing this, the Transformer warrior's eyes widened in rage as he asked incredulously, "Who are you?" The Secretary General shook his secret weapon lightly before answering, "Someone who can't reveal their identity, and someone responsible for covering up everything that happened here." His face was cold as ice, his movements crisp and decisive. The Transformer warrior's heart trembled with belated fear. Damn it, that's a laser wire. He turned to flee quickly. Just you wait. He'd barely taken one step when he immediately felt something was wrong. The laser wire had wrapped around his waist, but it was too late. His body was instantly cut in half, his upper body falling to the ground spectacularly. The Secretary General finally spoke leisurely. "I already said I was covering up the facts." Watching everything unfold before her, the blonde lady finally understood. He had shot out a laser wire in advance, and then lured the Transformer to flee to where the wire was positioned. With the matter handled, the Secretary General walked up to the blonde lady and asked with concern, "Are you badly hurt? I can still move." So this was the boss's arrangement after all? No. The blonde lady was confused. It wasn't? The Secretary General adjusted his glasses and explained, "Actually, someone asked me to come protect you." Meanwhile, on Adrian Cross's side, the punk with green hair took advantage of his injury and lowered guard to stab straight through him. His face showed a smug, wild smile as he taunted, "Then take off your mask!" Adrian Cross's throat suddenly moved. The green-haired punk froze. "What did you swallow?" The moment the words left his mouth, his arm was seized tightly, and he was instantly alarmed. Actually, 1 second before the explosion, I had hidden a pill in my mouth. This drug's scientific name was HCS3, also known as the high-calorie bomb. It had powerful analgesic effects and super regeneration abilities 3 times faster than normal. The severed arm site was surrounded by a ring of electricity as muscle tissue grew back frantically and rapidly. In the blink of an eye, a complete arm appeared. Both hands grabbed the green-haired man fiercely. He watched everything happening before him in disbelief. "I can't move my arms. This guy's strength is enormous." With one forceful pull, Adrian Cross directly ripped both of the green-haired man's arms off. A wave of intense pain made him scream out loud, his eyes filled with terror. "Hey, green-haired freak!" Adrian Cross kicked him flying with one foot. With a thud, he collapsed on the ground with a bruised and swollen face, half dead, as a voice warned, "Immortals should speak quietly." The private security team captain was also startled by the scene before him, his heart filled with belated fear. Prometheus is elite, actually. I looked at the 2 dazed security team captains and shouted, "What are you spacing out for? Next!" Provoked like this, the security team started firing with their guns, all firepower bearing down. Adrian Cross used his advantages to dodge rapidly. He jumped onto the roof of a nearby car and used the reactive force to leap up. Leaping down from the high ground, he delivered a lethal counterattack, turning defense into offense. The long machete in his hand slashed straight down, quickly taking down one person. Then with serpentine movements, he took down all the security personnel charging at him. It seemed it wasn't over yet. His exceptional perception immediately detected something wrong. At that moment, several long arrows shot through the air. He quickly raised his machete and barely blocked one arrow, but his thigh was directly pierced by another. Piercing through skin and flesh, the barbs on the arrowhead flew out with bits of flesh and blood. Adrian Cross stared at the long arrow, stunned. "This is the immortal killer hook." The team member in a SWAT uniform across from him raised a crossbow and threatened, "Whether you pull it out or not, there will be problems. Your movements will be restricted." The private security guard who had been watching from the side shouted angrily, "Damn it, if you had that thing, why didn't you use it earlier? He took down all our people." The security captain was furious upon hearing this. "What did you say? Do you know how expensive one of these is?" Suddenly, the people who were still talking froze at the sound. The barbed arrowhead had already been pulled out and fell to the ground, bouncing a few times. It rolled to the side and stopped moving, revealing a deep, bloody hole. The security personnel broke into a cold sweat looking at this reckless tiger. "He's insane. He actually used brute force to pull the hook out." He then ordered the person next to him, ability user, finish him off directly. After speaking, the ability user raised both palms and began generating telekinetic force. As the surrounding telekinetic force intensified, Adrian Cross's body was bent over and couldn't move. The ability user exerted force again, causing the ground to freeze directly. Seeing the frost had solidified, he stood up and continued exerting force on the air above, instantly igniting a raging fire. Adrian Cross was trapped between ice and fire, all his emotions hidden beneath the mask, impossible to read clearly. A moment later, Adrian Cross looked up and let out a cold laugh. The frost beneath his feet began to crack and fall away completely. Adrian Cross raised his long blade, broke through the restraints, and charged out. The private security captain was shocked. unable to believe the scene before his eyes. He actually managed to escape even from that? Adrian Cross's eyes gleamed with cold light. Meanwhile, on brother Jung-go Kim's side, after the ability user helped melt through the double-layered wall, he left. Jin stood at the entrance, examining the cabinet inside. Done yet? A voice suddenly came from behind him, and only then did he snap back to reality. Seeing Adrian Cross arrive, he said, "If you'd been 5 minutes later, I was planning to take my share and leave." After Adrian Cross entered, he touched the entrance wall and exclaimed, "The hole is so big." Only then did brother Jung-go Kim see his tattered appearance and teased, "Looking at you, I can't even imagine what it's like outside. I'm not going to see bodies piled up like mountains when I go out, am I?" No one died. Just a few got slashed. Medical technology is so advanced these days that ordinary injuries can be treated, though it'll cost a lot of money. He looked around and suddenly let out a surprised sound. "Isn't this a locker from a gym?" Brother Jung-go Kim explained. "The Prometheus guys are loaded. That's a personal safe made of refined gold." I thought to myself, they actually used expensive metal from the other side to make a personal safe? I touched it with my hands, and indeed, the texture was extraordinary. Hearing brother Jung-go Kim's words made me feel like I'd regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't take what was inside. I immediately used all my strength to pry at the handle, the muscles in my arms trembling. Brother Jung-go Kim looked at my ridiculous appearance, somewhat speechless, and said, "Stop wasting your energy. That thing can't even be blown up. Need me to help you open it?" Hearing this, my movements froze, and I asked uncertainly, "What?" Brother Jung-go Kim dropped the bag in his hand and explained aloud, "Refined gold is very hard, so it's not easy to forge. In other words, it's difficult to make structurally complex things out of refined gold." As he spoke, he pulled out his secret weapon, a long bent hook wire. He inserted it into the keyhole and turned it. In short, this thing is not even as good as a gym lock. With a creak, the door opened just like that. "Little brother, didn't I tell you?" Brother Jung-go Kim stood with his arms folded, full of confidence. "Oh my god, brother Jung-go!" I covered my mouth, my face full of admiration. "In your youth, you must have been a boss with few rivals in the world, right?" "That's right. Let's see what treasure it is that they hid so carefully." After speaking, both of them squeezed their heads to the front of the cabinet. Scrolls. In the empty cabinet, everything was visible at a glance. I took it out and opened it to look. This is parchment made from the skin of intruders. This kind of paper is fireproof, waterproof, and easy to preserve. Brother Jung-go Kim was still fiddling around when he suddenly exclaimed in surprise, "And there's Hedda's tears!" I looked at these treasures, reluctant to put them down. What a pity. If stolen goods appear on the market, we'll be caught on the spot, so we can't take them. I really hate to leave these treasures behind. A moment later, let's go. Brother Jung-go Kim slammed the door shut with a snap. Before that, I need to lock this safe. This is a treasure of humanity that can't be destroyed. Just as Jung-go Kim and Adrian Cross were about to leave, a sudden chill made both of them freeze. He held a gun behind them, aimed at the two, and shouted loudly, "Stop!" Hearing the voice, Adrian Cross was shocked. This voice is Jinam Jong, a member of the Immortal Special Forces. Everything happening now had to be told from when he first started the job. Jinam Jong had inherited pure bloodline, which also meant inheriting the corresponding responsibilities. I absolutely cannot disappoint the family's expectations. I must earn recognition, so I have to aim higher. However, in all the tests, I lost to Adrian Cross. From then on, there was whispering in the office. He just inherited the bloodline. But as for ability, being well-born doesn't necessarily make you a winner. But he is a newcomer after all. However, that guy is doing particularly well. Indeed, hearing these words belittling me, I could only comfort myself not to take it to heart. I can still salvage their opinion of me now. I just need to make a contribution. Just then, team leader Jusok Kim came to find me. "Jinam, get your weapons. We're going out for support." The Asset Savings main branch was robbed. Arriving at the entrance of Asset Savings, looking at the devastated battlefield and numerous casualties waiting for rescue, I thought to myself, was this really done by robbers? At this moment, a Puat person nearby suddenly complained, "He's a complete lunatic, and it's like he has congenital analgesia. He escaped inside during the fight and is barely holding on by concealing his presence." I listened very carefully, afraid of missing any important information. After hearing this, my doubts deepened. Most of the seriously injured were private security. The Puat people weren't hurt much. I asked the Puat person curiously, "Did you guys just surround this place without going in to check?" The other party retorted directly, "Look at the situation around here, how could we go in? No matter how you look at it, that guy has had formal training. Is he one of your people? Let's go in and take a look." Jinam Jong frowned, thinking to himself that this was a good opportunity to make a contribution. Turning his head, he saw his colleague had already gone in to check. The enormous pressure made cold sweat break out on his face. His mouth was tightly pursed, his brow furrowed, and he kept silently chanting to himself about making a contribution. At this moment, a colleague nearby came over and asked, "How is it?" The sudden voice startled Jinam Jong, who immediately spoke up, "I didn't find anything. Looks like that person already ran. Let's go." Jinam Jong lowered his head, the pressure inside enormous. The other two had already started to leave, but but Jinamjong stood still, looking at the surrounding terrain and beginning to think. This is a storage company that safeguards important items, and the perpetrator launched a warlike attack on such a place. Although Puat said that person was a lunatic with congenital analgesia, what if this was all deliberate? Suddenly thinking of something, he quickly spoke up. Chief, can I confirm one thing before we leave? Time returned to when both sides were in confrontation. Adrian Cross and Jung Go Kim both turned around to face him. For a moment, both sides were at a standstill, neither daring to make the first move. Suddenly, Adrian Cross shouted loudly, "Brother Jung Go, run!" He forcefully pushed him with one palm. Brother Jung Go Kim was sent flying directly. Everything happened too fast. Jinamjong quickly pulled out another gun, chambered around with one hand, and threatened Jung Go Kim coldly, "You can't escape." The moment the words left his mouth, Adrian Cross drew his dagger. He threw it straight at his wrist, the movement clean and decisive without any hesitation. The gun in Jinamjong's hand was hit and flew out of his grip. He let out a disdainful tish, his face showing some fierceness, and quickly aimed the other gun at Adrian Cross. He fired several shots in succession, all blocked by the arm, with bullets deeply embedded in the arm's muscles. Suddenly, a bullet grazed past his ear, and the bullet head split into several pieces in that instant. Adrian Cross was startled. Bullets that split into 8 pieces after hitting the target are octopus rounds. Jinamjong threatened coldly, "If you don't want your muscles and nerves shattered, kneel down." The shock in Adrian Cross's heart couldn't subside for a long time. The two faced each other in confrontation like this, waiting for the other's next move. Adrian Cross took advantage of his unpreparedness and suddenly ran toward a concealed spot nearby. Jinamjong quickly reacted and aimed his gun to fire. Adrian Cross dodged with all his might and hid behind a pillar. Meanwhile, brother Jung Go Kim took advantage of the two fighting intensely, grabbed his bag and ran. Jinamjong only reacted when he heard the commotion. When he turned back to look, he had already run quite a distance. At the critical moment, Adrian Cross leaned out to attract attention. Jinamjong seemed to have been prepared all along. He turned his gun and fired several shots at Adrian Cross. Adrian Cross extended his arm to block the shots. Understanding in his heart, this kid wanted to draw me out from the very beginning. But thanks to this, brother Jungo escaped. After hiding in the corner on the other side, though temporarily safe, Adrian Cross still didn't dare relax. He used his injured arm to lift his mask. He bit down hard on the muzzle area, thinking to himself, although it seems like only Janam Jong is here right now, the Immortal Special Forces wouldn't let him come alone. The other team members should be on standby elsewhere. The bullet in his arm was bitten out and spat directly onto the ground, still carrying a piece of flesh. The Immortal Special Forces are different from PWAT or private security teams. Before the others arrive, I need to end this battle quickly. Recalling the lesson the beautiful teacher taught me, if you don't want to get hit by bullets, first learn how to run away. He put the tiger mask back on. He gathered all his strength and charged toward the doorway. Following the rhythm, he used irregular steps to adjust his speed and moved in a diagonal line. This allowed him to dodge the bullets. Before Jinam Jong could react, Adrian Cross was in front of him in the blink of an eye, fist clenched. He directly sent Jinam Jong flying with one punch. The powerful inertia made Jinam Jong slide on the ground for a while before stopping, while Adrian Cross coughed from exerting too much force at once. After calming his cough, he raised his head. The mask on his face was damaged in the intense confrontation. Looking at Jinam Jong lying on the ground, he said, "You've made progress, kid. In the fight just now, he actually attacked my medulla oblongata in that instant." His judgment was very accurate, because once the connection between mind and body is severed, even super regeneration is useless. Feeling his dagger against my neck, I directly smashed his helmet mask with one punch. Jinam Jong, with a bruised and swollen face, propped himself up and said through gritted teeth, "Of course, you." Before he could finish speaking, Adrian Cross stepped forward and kicked him hard, making him shut up immediately. His method didn't work because I dodged it. After saying this, he even gestured with the dagger. After I kicked him with all my strength, Jinam Jong passed out, and I left him behind and quickly fled the scene. Meeting up with brother Jungo Kim, I reminded him, "You know to be careful during this time and not let anyone discover you, right?" Brother Jungo Kim nodded. "Goodbye, little brother." After seeing brother Jungo off, I used the clothes and motorcycle prepared in advance to disguise myself as a delivery person and headed to an unmanned hotel. By this time, it was already dark. There were 12 hours left before the trial would begin. We now bring you breaking news. Asset Savings has been attacked once again. Although the Immortal Special Forces and the Ability Police Special Agent team were mobilized, they still couldn't prevent the attack from happening again. In response, the authorities, Adrian Cross turned off the TV. "You're saying Brother Secretary came to help?" His attitude at the time seemed like he completely didn't want to help. I was actually quite worried. The blonde lady on the other end of the phone was somewhat puzzled. "How exactly did you persuade him?" "Never mind. So, what did you find?" Adrian Cross froze, not expecting her to ask. "Well, simply attacking the main branch counts as revenge, but in this situation, revenge is useless. You went to the Asset Savings main branch to obtain evidence that could be submitted at tomorrow's External Security Team 3 Disciplinary Committee, right?" The more Adrian Cross listened, the darker his expression became, breaking out in cold sweat, thinking to himself how terrifying she was. "One of the management staff stamped the wrong seal. What does that mean?" "I can't reveal more." "Very efficient." Well, I really don't need to know. Anyway, I've paid back what I owed you. After saying this, the blonde lady hung up the phone directly. She actually didn't press for more information. Alright, now I need to figure things out myself. But can I directly expose this matter? Right now, I can't consult Senior Supervisor Panda or Team Leader Foulmouth. Should I just attend the committee as a witness and expose it directly? But would anyone believe my testimony? After all, the other party is management, and I'm just a level 2 employee, thinking too much without results. Adrian Cross lay down directly on the bed and comforted himself. I won't think about it anymore. But he couldn't help thinking of his father. At a time like this, if I asked Dad what to do, he would definitely answer like this. Even if you rack your brains over things you don't know, it's useless. Better to ask someone who knows. Adrian Cross stared at the hotel ceiling and lay there in a daze for quite a while. Ask someone who knows. I think I know who to look for. At this moment, Doran Park was running on a treadmill at the gym listening to music when Adrian Cross's call came in. The moonlight is beautiful tonight, Doran Park interrupted unsubtly. I don't like younger guys, Adrian Cross retorted directly. I don't like older women either. What do you want from me? Team leader, I want to ask you something, Doran Park replied while panting heavily. Employee Adrian Cross, don't mix personal and professional matters. Adrian Cross smiled shamelessly. Please help me look at a photo first. Time came to the next day at the Immortal Special Forces office building. The trial was about to begin, and all the people who should attend had taken their seats. Supervisor Dong-Hun Lee yawned carelessly. Jong Kim remained calm as always. Only team leader Jung-Bong Lee in the seat nearby had a gloomy expression. Looking at today's attendees, he sighed inwardly. This is quite grand. It's one thing that General Headquarters Director Daniel Kim and Personnel Headquarters Director Jeng-Mo Lee are present, but this disciplinary committee is actually presided over by someone even Boss Myong-Jin Nam wouldn't dare provoke easily. Executive Director Yoon Ma. After making me so miserable, they still give me the treatment of a team leader. The trial began. Director Daniel Kim questioned coldly with a stern face. Director of Dispatch Headquarters, you really weren't involved in this matter? The sharp words made the Director of Dispatch Headquarters break out in cold sweat, and he anxiously defended himself. I had no idea about their plan. Jung-Bong Lee just asked me to support a non-public operation. Forget it, as long as you're not involved. Executive Director Yoon Ma spoke up and asked, explain the case details. Doran Park answered, the targets this time are employees of our company who attacked asset savings. Although I don't know the reason they attacked 2 branches, all their actions were deliberate and planned. Yesterday, the asset savings main branch was also attacked, but they were in the company all night. Executive Director Yoon Ma frowned as he listened. He asked Doran Park cautiously again, so the suspicion you mentioned is really true? Doran Park answered affirmatively. That's correct. Dong-Gun Lee also anxiously defended, it's true, we have a witness. This process is unreasonable because you didn't give us time to raise objections. Doran Park glanced at him and said with a smile, let's wait until after the witness testimony. When Executive Director Yoon Ma heard there was a witness, he asked coldly, who is the witness? Level 2 employee, Adrian Cross of External Security Team 3, where is he? According to the news just received, he overslept, so he'll arrive a bit late. At this moment, Adrian Cross, having overslept, hadn't even opened his eyes yet and was frantically putting on his clothes and pants, running outside. The 3 people sitting in the main seats at the trial widened their eyes in shock at this absurd reason. The 3 people across from them remained expressionless and weren't surprised at all. This was Adrian Cross's consistent style. They were used to it. Myung-Jin Nam and the audience sexy burst out laughing. The Secretary General quietly reminded him beside him. Myung-Jin Nam reacted in time and smiled embarrassedly. Sorry, but he still couldn't help bending over with laughter. No way he actually would be late to a disciplinary committee that concerns his team and his own future. Team leader Jung-Bong Lee sighed helplessly. Crazy. After waiting for a moment, Adrian Cross appeared with messy bed hair, looking directly at the people at the trial. Hello everyone, I'm level 2 employee Adrian Cross. Executive Director Yoon Ma looked at his terrible appearance and questioned, why are you late? I overslept. Looking at you, that's obvious. Then let me ask you, are all members of External Security Team 3 involved in the Asset Savings Company attack incident? Adrian Cross answered honestly, yes. Since it's all true, then there's nothing more to say. What on earth did you lunatics do outside? Employee Adrian Cross, are you also involved in this matter? Yes, that's right. Team leader Jung-Bong Lee listened to their conversation speechlessly. From now on, level 2 employee Adrian Cross is also determined to be a suspect. Wait, I haven't finished speaking, Adrian Cross fearlessly announced loudly. The person who attacked the Asset Savings main branch yesterday was also me. As soon as these words came out, everyone at the trial showed different expressions, and all looked at Adrian Cross in unison. Boss Myong-Jin Nam looked at him with a probing gaze. Let me quickly see how interesting the thing you're hiding is, Adrian Cross continued. Moreover, I picked up a very interesting thing in the main branch vault. He reached into his pocket and rummaged around. Director Daniel Kim in the chairman's seat saw his movement and shouted loudly, what are you doing? Adrian Cross pulled out a roll of parchment from his pocket. I want to present relevant evidence to prove that the finalization of this plan was reasonable. May I ask, is Asset Savings an ordinary financial company? Doran Park glanced sideways and hinted secretly. Employee Adrian Cross, regardless of what kind of place Asset Savings is, you have no right to attack that company based solely on subjective suspicion. Adrian Cross suddenly understood. Right, exactly. But according to internal regulations, in extremely special circumstances, operations are allowed based solely on subjective suspicion. Doran Park nodded with a smile, looking like a teacher pleased with her student. Boss Myeongjin Nam also smiled and muttered quietly, "That's internal regulation, Article 12, Item 8. Extremely special circumstances mean the company is in great danger." To prove his words were true, Adrian Cross unrolled the parchment in his hand with a flourish. "Please confirm it with your own eyes." The words on the parchment shocked everyone greatly. "We possess the light that illuminates the dark world, so it is we who will teach the superiority of our species to the dull ones." His thoughts returned to last night's call with Doran Park. The Immortal Cult is an organization that believes only immortal bloodlines deserve to live in this world, holding immortal supremacist ideology. Although it's superficially a pseudo-religious organization, it's actually no different from an attack organization. The parchment picture you sent is their revelation. Revelation? Doran Park heard Adrian Cross's confusion and continued to explain, although I don't know the reason, high-ranking followers of the Immortal Cult must carry the revelation to prove themselves. She carefully studied the picture Adrian Cross sent on her phone and said, "There's a special ink called holy water. It only appears when it comes into contact with immortal blood. This revelation should have the names of high-ranking Immortal Cult followers written in special ink." At the trial, Director Jang Mo Lee spoke incredulously. "That thing was actually an asset savings vault?" Executive Director Yoon Ma frowned and questioned in a deep voice, "Have you confirmed the names on the revelation?" "I have. The names on here are..." Before he could finish, he was interrupted. Director Daniel Kim arrogantly beckoned with his finger. "Let me confirm it with my own eyes first." Doran Park quickly handed the revelation to him. Director Daniel Kim took the revelation and turned to ask the two people beside him, "By the way, who has a knife?" Executive Director Yoon Ma smiled and reached into his pocket saying, "I do."